Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please let me know if you can hear me. For those in posterity, just saying hello. We are catching up on shenanigans. We are trying to get back into the swing of things. Brianna, swear to God, I know it's going to seem like convenient timing, but she actually is undergoing surgery. It is for something that is essential to her being able to work, so it is important. She needs to prioritize that. We will be live with a counter fire episode, but we will have guest hosts this week and next week while Brianna is recuperating. If she needs longer than that, then she needs longer than that. But I think it'll be Stardust this week, providing that she's still available. The following week will be Fairy Queen if she's still available. And we do have some backups just in case those folks aren't watching or not watching, not available. Just sharing it on the Warhammer front because some of you guys have migrated over from my Warhammer channel. I am currently 3D printing a skull. And not just a skull. I'm 3D printing a skeleton, the upper half of a skeleton, so I can make a Mythbusters style, what do you call that? Ballistic gelatin torso. Now, instead of gelatin, we'll be using silicone, and instead of bones, and instead of whatever, we'll be using 3D printed PLA and PLA plus material in order to make the skeleton. But basically, we're working on that in the background. So the game plan is figure out and fix the ballistic gelatin torsos, blow them up with explosive bolter rounds. I still have my bolter, obviously, and then work on the pistol and the chainsword. Then I'll be working on the flamethrower, and then after that, we'll move into different things. I actually just I texted my uncle, who I've only talked to a few times in the past few decades. He he has some ideas for weapons to create in the show. But good evening, everyone. I don't see any comments yet, but if y'all can y'all let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay? I just want to make sure that the audio is working correctly. If y'all could like the stream and also put something in the chat, that way I know that everything is going. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to check it myself. So, anyways, getting back into presuming that we have audio, waiting for something to get posted. Yep, we can hear you. Excellent. Well, welcome to the show, Fearmonger. Appreciate it. So, presuming that we have audio, presuming that, hello, how are you doing today? I'm doing well, RC. Thank you kindly. Good evening, Fearmonger. Good evening, RC. So, going into the content that we're going to be doing tonight, we're going to be doing a Too Long Didn't Watch. This is where I watch old and highly regarded debates and break them down. We are already halfway through. Good evening, Daedalus. We are already halfway through the Sargon of Akkad debate, where they're debating whether or not trans women are women. So, I know this is still relevant today as it was back then, and it is fairly spicy. And I actually remembered previously being on Destiny's side, but after writing down a whole bunch of arguments, I actually ended up being more on Sargon's side, which was a surprise for me. So, without much further ado, we're going to get into the content, and we're going to pause intermittently in order to break it down, and we're going to get through it. Let's go.
Center point to this conversation. It is exactly what we're talking about.
Listen. No, it's not, because what you're arguing for, what you're arguing here is like an abstract hypothetical, right? Yeah, I mean, without the existence of a human being, the concept of man and woman probably disappears. But that doesn't mean that the biological reality of maybe an ape or something, they could have the same biological reality without having the social construct of a man and woman. But the thing is, all of this is centered in our social interactions. So saying that is utterly irrelevant, because at the end of the day, when we say it has a necessary connection, what we mean is philosophically in the way we interpret the world. So it doesn't really matter, like, objectively, outside of the concept, the scope of the human experience, there is no thing that is called a man, therefore it doesn't connect to what we biologically describe as a male. Okay, maybe, but who gives a shit about that? We're human beings living in a society, in the world, describing things as we understand them and interacting with one another, right? It's such a pointless diversion that you're trying to go on here, right? So anyway,
okay, just to be clear,
the construct has a descriptive element that is expressly to do with the biology of the person we're describing.
Wait, can you repeat that statement?
What the last one I just made?
Yeah, what you just said, yeah.
Yeah, the social construct, the concept of woman or man, whatever,
okay, yes,
expressly describes a biological condition.
Yes, Fearmonger. This is an old, I know it's old, but this is an older Destiny versus Sargon of Akkad debate. And yeah, we're going to be breaking this down. The interesting thing is, I remember when I watched this at the time, and it could be a different debate, but I just remember Sargon repeating over and over and over again that a a woman is an adult human female, adult human female, adult human female. I just remember him repeating that over and over again. That literally could be a different debate, because in this one, we actually have a healthy chunk of points. Like in part one, we had society has requirements that have to be served, that this phrase contradicts, that trans women are women. State is an organ of compulsion. So he's talking about how, especially in the Commonwealth, misgendering is now an issue of legal harassment. Breeding is the core component of long-term relationships. So it's, critical to long-term relationships. Social role of gender has a natural origin and function. Morally prescriptive positions come from nature. The social role of man and woman is to reproduce. The phrase trans women as women implies their sex has changed, which is not true. Now, you can say that there's absolutely contradictions to these like rules that Sargon has kind of applied here, and I'll agree with you all day. As a matter of fact, I don't think that like trans women are women. What you're saying is that like trans women follow under the category of women. So you would have women, and underneath that category, you would have trans women and cis women. And then for men, you would have trans men and cis men. And that's how you categorize them within your mind. So, nothing, but that being said, nothing he has said there, while they have exceptions, is contradictory with reality. Destiny rebutted in part one. I'm not going to read you all of it, but I will just give you a little bit of a recap. Trans women want to be seen as whole and complete women by society. Destiny dismisses nature, basically as a, like an appeal to nature. He sees it as like a logical fallacy, but he doesn't really explain why. If all women wanted to work, would you compel them by the culture or by the state to serve their roles as women? And that was actually an interesting thing where I found myself more on Sargon of Akkad. I think he actually dodged that answer. But for me, I'd be like, yeah, like there should be some cultural pressure in order for women to serve their biological roles. Same way that there should be pressure on men in order to serve their biological roles. So it doesn't have to apply to everyone, and you don't have to have the state compel it, but either way. So enough ranting aside, I think you can get a vibe check based off of that. So let's continue with the content.
What do you mean expressly describes?
That's the purpose of it.
No, that's not true. The purpose of it that we agreed on earlier, or the reason why we use it, is because it provides some utility to society.
Yes, but that's the utility it's providing.
No, the utility it's providing is also something we agreed on earlier. Your own words were that it facilitates social interactions.
Yeah.
Nowhere in literature, nowhere in the scientific literature, anywhere, you will
We're
never
not talking
open
about
up.
science. We're not talking about science.
Okay.
We're talking about philosophy.
Okay.
Be specific. Don't they're going off
He's
on a
actually-
tangent.
Well, every time you say
He's actually, it's funny. I remember the old debate, and I know that people are just coming in or whatever. But in the old debate, Destiny was saying how science can't tell us like it can only tell us descriptions and facts. It can't give us prescriptive stuff. So you need philosophy in order to do it. So Sargon's being a little bit of a smarmy asshole right now by saying that like, oh, well, we can't use science in order to determine things. We're using philosophy. And so Destiny's kind of like cringing right now, but I don't know, like I'm pause Andying it, but I want to see what he comes back with, because if you start out with that argument, but then now you're cringing because somebody's using it against you, you're gonna have to explain that.
Say we're talking about
construct.
Listen, you're on one hand you keep saying we're talking about philosophy, but every time we try to talk about philosophy, you say it's all semantics. So I'm getting very confused. I don't know what the fuck we're talking about sometimes. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I don't agree. I think this is a defensive characterization that is not accurate, because you
I haven't
can't
heard that so
separate
far.
the purpose of the construct, which is to identify a man or a woman, a biological male or female, for the purpose of reproduction.
No, okay.
But so no, if I think of it like a
Okay.
a vehicle.
No, I don't need to.
Think
The
of it
word
like a
that what you just used, the purpose of a definition, okay? And then so purpose implies like a reason for its existence, okay? A purpose is so now a reason
To be
sounds
useful.
like a normative, a choice claim, a moral
Yeah,
claim.
it is. Yeah.
Okay, but there is no.
Well, no, hang on. Stop. No, stop.
Yeah, let him finish.
Stop. A normative claim does not necessarily mean a moral claim.
Yes, it does. It's a normative and a descriptive claim. You're saying that.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, no. A normative just is how something should be, but the reason for that could be something other than moral.
What other reasons could there be?
Technical. If I'm making a fucking car, I can say, well, morally, I think that I should be able to run this on like fucking orange juice. But technically, it's going to require an oil engine, and that's not a moral claim, you monkey. Come on, man.
No, that's a descriptive claim. Like the engine,
not a moral one.
No, the engine needs oil to run. That would be like a
Yeah,
descriptive.
but not all normative claims are moral. Anyway. Look, again, we're getting off weeds. Like,
Yeah. So just Googling this real quick so we know what we're talking about. Destiny kind of hit a little snare there, but I don't think it's enough to... They're both being smug to each other, so I don't think it's enough to really, like, prove that one is smarter than the other. But normative, reading the definition, establishing, relating to, or deriving from a standard or norm, especially for behavior. Now, especially is obviously, carrying some weight there if you want to side more with Destiny. But if you're talking about establishing, relating to, or deriving from a standard or norm, well, normative, you can have, you can, like he used the car as an example. You can say, normally we use petrol or gasoline in reference to motor vehicles. As a result, like, we're going to continue to do that because whatever. And that's like a normative claim. But moral, good or bad, you can make different moral claims about it. So I don't know, I'm just telling you based off of perception, that I think Sargon is correct. This was originally streamed March 2nd of 2019. So I understand that it's old content, but the age of the content is not what we are concerned with tonight. We are concerned with the quality of the arguments presented.
okay, so what exactly is it that you think? Do you honestly think that there can be it's no problem, and there is no connection to the biology of a male or female that the gender roles have? Is that what you think?
So just real quick, so normative generally means relating to an evaluative standard. Normativity is a phenomenon in human societies of designating some actions or outcome as good or desirable or permissible, and others as bad or undesirable or impermissible. So good and
the thing
bad
is, good
are words that usually
hang on a
like morally.
I know. Hang on, things you're getting.
Well, like
I would split hairs here.
The thing,
this is important because like good isn't
Fuck.
really necessarily a moral word. It's a word of.
Wait. A second. Morality is the analysis of good and bad. What the fuck do you mean, Sargon? Don't turn this dub into an elf.
Fuck's sake, I knew you'd make me.
Well, I'm just saying that normative claims are generally ought claims, right? Normative claims are things that we ought to do generally. And ought things generally imply some level of morality, because you can't find ought claims descriptively. Nowhere in the world am I ever going to find a claim a man ought to be something that has an XY chromosome. That doesn't exist. That type of normative thing can't be found like anywhere in nature, right? That's
okay, then. Okay, well let's
I don't know about
that. The way that you've described it. So that's actually not a bad place. I agree that a man ought to be something with an XY chromosome.
Okay, now my question is why?
Because
in order to establish utility, in order to reproduce.
Genetic composition of a human being.
Okay, so notice how many like weasel words you just used there. What do you mean by healthy composition? Are you saying
reproductive? Able to reproduce.
Presumably. Okay, so your definition then of man is something that is able to inject sperm into something else. That's like your definition of like male. That's
part
like
of it. No. Well, are you saying male or man?
Male, I guess. Or how do you choose? What do you want to say?
Well, this is the thing. It's incredibly complicated. Well, I mean, the male, I presume, describes the chromosomal and physical arrangement of the biological matter that makes up a human being, right? And then we have female ones as well, and we also have a category of like deviations on this.
So save us time. What I'm going to end up pushing you on is any necessary condition you give me for male. I'm going to point to a category of people that we both consider male that don't need it. Let's say that a man that's had testicular cancer, right? Is this no longer a male, or do you have a different like criteria for how you actually define male or female?
I don't agree that like.
This is no. So I'm coming full screen Because this is what happened last time, and it actually happened in a previous debate with Destiny as well, and it actually frustrates the piss out of me because Vosh as a clone, and let's just say some of Vosh's clones who I'm still friendly with, they do this thing where they take a rule and then they bring up an exception and then they say the rule no longer applies. That is a stupid fucking argumentative strategy that might be impressive to some, but I think is retarded if you give it any higher level of thought. So, for instance, gravity. It's one of the most certain things that is on. Objects with mass tend to, have the higher the mass, the higher the gravitational pull. Because of the gravitational pull, things tend to orient themselves to it and fall towards them. Right now, you can come up with an exception like, oh well, rockets fight the gravity of a planet, therefore this rule no longer applies. And it's like, no, like the rule still applies. Like, it's just that there's a variable that you're not factoring in, which is the fact that it's using like thrust and it's using force in order to escape the gravitational pull. And so what'll happen is oftentimes around that, because you are the person who now has to explain like rocket engineering and thrust and acceleration and force and momentum and kinetic energy and all that kind of shit, you look like a flailing fucking buffoon because you're trying to explain like all these concepts that take minutes upon minutes upon minutes upon minutes in order to describe, whereas that person can be like, well, if the rule doesn't apply to everything, then is it even a rule? And it's like the shittiest form of fucking argumentation. I absolutely fucking hate it. It's a pain in my ball sack. I wish it didn't happen. But yeah, let's continue.
Injuries that happen to someone in the course of their life negate the thing that they are.
What
I
if
mean, well,
that?
sometimes they do,
What
I
if we
suppose.
consider that
But,
injury? What do we consider the injury to be? Sex reassignment surgery.
Yeah, but I'm not suggesting that these categories are perfect and universal.
Oh, cool. Neither am I. That's why I'm arguing that we can slightly change them in order to include more people
Yeah,
and
but I
serve the
don't
happiness
agree.
of more
We can-
people.
Okay, yeah, but I don't agree that the gender role male man or
Sorry, I'm also going to pause again real quick. This is something that we bumped into in the last episode where Destiny's definition of utility includes and prioritizes happiness. I think that this is a mistake. Happiness is not my primary driver. Like the temporary emotion of happiness or contentment is not my driver. My driver is like purpose, love, family, respect, legacy, history, virtue. There's like half a dozen to a dozen things that I prioritize that don't have to do with happiness. And I also think that another problem that, like, if Destiny and I'm not saying we're like friends, we're friendly, but if we were like friends, one of the things that I would try to make sure as a friend he doesn't mistake is that pleasure and happiness are not the same thing. You can ruin your life by pursuing pleasure, and pursuing pleasure can make you miserable. Like, you have to be able to differentiate these concepts between pleasure, happiness, contentment, and purpose. And if you mistake one for the other, you can have disastrous personal and social results.
can be expanded so dramatically to include the other gender role,
Okay.
like the biology of the other gender
And I
role.
understand
think they're
that.
mutually exclusive
I
there.
agree. Okay, I understand your point there. And earlier when I asked you, this is how we came here like 10 minutes ago. I said, okay, well, can you give me an example of how expanding that can be damaging to you? And then you said interpersonal relationships, and we kind of stopped there. So let's say we do that. So now we're back here. Let's expand man to also include trans men. Let's expand women to also include trans women. Now, what damage or harm does that cause to any traditional Sargon man or Sargon woman? Like,
Okay, well, I don't know what you mean by Sargon man or Sargon woman.
your definition
but
of
I
man or
think-
woman.
I think I've already explained. What you've done is change the definition so radically as to include its antonym. So I don't know why I would agree to that.
Okay, if we're talking about, okay, well, let's be a little bit more clear. Okay.
Okay, and no, let me ask you a question, right? Would you date a transgender male to female?
I think I would, sure.
Yeah, you'd have
There's
no questions.
basically, it's a long story, but yeah, I've thought about this a lot before, and I almost did. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you were thinking you want to have children one day, I mean, I know you've got. Assuming you didn't.
No, then I wouldn't. No.
Would you? But
Okay.
why not?
Because I would want to have somebody that can have children.
Yeah, but you're being trans exclusive. You're being transphobic.
No, I'm looking for someone that can have children. This
Yeah.
means that there are hetero
You're
cis.
saying-
No,
you're saying-
wait, stop. Because you think you have a point, but you don't. But this means that there are normal. there are. I keep saying normal. I'm sorry. I'm using Sargon language. That means that there are cisgendered.
You're using normal person's language. Yeah.
Well, I'm using words I think you understand. I could find a cisgendered
I
woman,
understand
okay,
cisgender.
a cisgendered woman, okay, that I wouldn't want to date if she couldn't have children, if I wanted to have children, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not being trans exclusive. I'm just looking for someone that can have children.
Yeah, but you would also still be being trans exclusive because ultimately your definition of, I mean, you're not like like you're not suggesting that there should be no other differences, right? So like I said, it's not just this one aspect. This is just the most glaring and obvious one. I mean, there are
Sure.
obviously
Well, let's go into
other
an argument that you can
aspects.
actually defend that because the fertility one is not a
I've
good
defended
one.
everything perfectly fine up
No,
until
you
this point.
haven't, because I just told
Of
you I
course I
could
have.
not date a normal. Or, I'm fucking. I could not date a cisgender woman. Okay, I could not date a
Yeah.
cisgender woman, and it could be because she can't have children, and that's it. I could
Could
do
be.
that just as well as any trans woman. Like,
Could be. If she didn't tell you, would you feel deceived?
if I didn't know that she was infertile.
Yeah.
If I said I wanted to have children, yeah, of course.
Yeah, but do you think that there would be any concern from say activist groups who might consider it transphobic to
No,
consider a woman who couldn't have children to
not what?
not be a real woman?
No, because I wouldn't make that claim. I would just say like, hey, I want to have children. Are you capable of having children? And the other person, whether they're a cisgender woman or a trans woman, would say, oh, well, I'm infertile. And I would say, oh, well, that's not what I'm looking for. And I don't think any reasonable trans person would have a problem with that. They go, oh, well, if they really want to have
Okay.
children, then yeah, you wouldn't date that
Well,
person.
I'm sure that a reasonable one wouldn't.
Which I think is most trans people. I don't think that there are trans activists that are saying, like, people are acting like trans people are saying you have to like pair up every cisgender male with a trans woman and force them to date them and be happy. Like, I mean, I don't think anyone is seriously advocating for this.
Yeah, do you think that there's any kind of obligation?
The amount of psychic damage that Milo Stewart and I want to say it's like Riley or something like that. I don't want to be confusing people, but there were two trans creators who did not have that many subs and did not have that many views, but every anti-social justice warrior just milked the fuck out of them for like a year. They used them so horribly because they were making these very terrible arguments. And if anything, one of the things that kind of got me to no longer trust the anti-social justice warrior creators was when I realized that they were milking like on the scale of things who megalol YouTubers and Twitch streamers or whatever, not like I'm big or anything, but they were milking who megalol creators in order to come up with like the straw man of their opponents, and then they could just endlessly rail against the dumbest, least relevant argument. And unfortunately for Sargon right here, I feel like Destiny did play a fairly decent Uno reverse card where they did bring up fertility as an issue. And then I think that anybody who's sane, who is liberal or progressive minded, would say, well, if having biological children is a priority for you, which is not weird at all, except for on Twitter, then not wanting to date a cis woman who wasn't capable of having children or a trans woman who wasn't capable of having children isn't transphobic, because the reason why you're not dating them isn't because they're trans, although, you know, I think that's an okay reason, but it's because you want children. And so that's like a perfectly logical, coherent argument. And I feel like Sargon is not going to be quick enough on the uptick in order to catch Destiny flat-footed. This might be where the conversation kind of starts to slant towards Destiny a little bit.
Getting back to the unilateral and definitions of words. Do you not think that there's something inherently entitled to the idea of trying to change language, without the consent of wider society?
Yeah, of course there's an entitlement there, but I would argue that all people
Yeah.
should be entitled in that way. Absolutely. You should be entitled to your own like individual rights and freedoms. Yeah, of course.
Well, we're not talking about
That's not
rights.
what
We're
he's
just talking
saying,
about
though.
language.
Well, no. Consequentially, we're talking about your right to exist and be happy in a society. That's what we're talking about. If society has a language that is loaded against you,
I don't think
then
I don't think that's something. Okay, listen, right? So I think that you
We're coming
can
back to
pursue
happiness again,
but I
which
think
pisses me off.
happiness isn't guaranteed, obviously. And
no, but we
but
should
anyway,
do
getting to
everything.
the
We should do everything we can in society in order to help people achieve the greatest amount of happiness. I believe that we have that obligation.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I possibly that's certainly one way of looking at it. But the
Well,
thing
it's
that I have a problem with,
well, hold
Billy,
on.
though,
That's
is
really important
the
because
impact
if you disagree with that, then we can't go any further. If you think that we should have a society where everybody can say fuck off to every other person and has no whatever anything could all be horrible to other people and that's okay and that's totally fine, then we just are fundamentally at ends there. We'll never agree on anything.
what should people be able to say fuck off to one another?
In a way
Yes.
that like severely harms or damages large groups of people? I don't think so, no.
Ooh, no, progressive Steven, no. All right, I'm just pausing right there because that is like that's funny. That's wildly way more progressive than Destiny is right now. That's actually really fucking funny. No, you should absolutely be able to tell people to fuck off. That's fucking crazy that he even said that. And also what Sargon's getting at, which I remember quite vividly from the time, was the fact that this was, I don't want to say this is exactly when Jordan Peterson got big. This isn't exactly Bill 16 C16 territory, but the concern was that society was pushing people to have to properly gender people under threat of law enforcement, punishment. And in Canada and in the United Kingdom, this hasn't fully come to pass. But what has come to pass is the fact that if you misgender somebody aggressively in a professional setting, or if you misgender them aggressively during civil proceedings, then that can be like updated to harassment, basically. And so that's where kind of like the compulsive language gets a little bit weird because it's like you can refer to someone by their name. Let's say that you have a trans gal. Used to be Andrew, now it's Andrea. You can use Andrea repeatedly and be respectful to the individual and communicate what you need to communicate in a civil or professional setting without necessarily using like she, her pronouns, right? But if you're a douche nozzle or if you're like a religious zealot, then what you're going to do is you're going to be like, no, he, Andrea, is a menace and an asshole and I don't like them and blah, 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 blah. And if you're warned by your boss and if you're warned by your institution and if you're warned by the civil proceedings repeatedly in order to stop doing that and you refuse to stop doing that, is that a form of compulsion? I think the answer is yes. But what Sargon is saying, which I think he would still agree with today, is that people should have the rights to be assholes in free society, particularly if they think that they're telling the truth about their perspective and about broader society. Whereas Destiny right now is taking a more, I would say, somebody said fascist in chat, definitely a way more authoritarian perspective, which is that in order to affect the happiness of other people, we should be able to intervene in their behavior. And I don't know how far he would take that as an American, if he's going to say like, oh, well, we should just use social pressure or cultural pressure, or if he's actually going to say like, actually, I believe the state should be able to do it. So we'll see how it develops. But that's actually a wildly consequential statement from a much more progressive Stephen Bennell than I think we have in our modern era. When is your big conservative panel? Isn't it coming up? Yes, it's this upcoming Wednesday, I believe. Cow Rich. So it'll be at like 8 to 8:30 on Wednesday is when we will be fighting, and the group chat is already very spicy. Wow, that sounds like fascism. Yep, it's definitely authoritarianism. Maybe not fascism specifically, but it's definitely an authoritarian frame of thinking. Let's continue.
Then you're just for censorship then. If we can't say fuck off to like a group of people, why can we say it to one another?
Well, it depends on what you're saying it for. And to say that I'm just for censorship is so hilariously reductive. That's like saying you're
Well,
just for
that's
talking
what you're
about
saying.
words. Like, I mean, like, what do you mean? That's like insanely reductive.
Well, you're creating an argument for wide scale censorship there.
Do you think that I should be allowed to walk outside and shove my dick into the face of a 2-year-old?
Probably not.
Oh, then you're just for censorship. Sorry, I found the fascists.
I don't agree that's
Okay, but do you see how absurdly reductive that argument is? Do you see how that's
yeah,
really?
But there's victim there. I mean, there are
Okay, and there are victims in society when we use
and
words.
I don't even agree that that's political speech.
Okay, well, other people disagree. For instance,
what's your political statement when you just stuck your dick in the face of a 2-year-old?
What's the political statement of women that walk around topless? I mean, people make political statements in tons of fucking crazy ways. What's the political statement of a monk setting himself on fire outside of a gas station? Like
that's why I'm asking you about your.
Oh no! Oh no! Stephen had foresight. This was just a meme in 2019. Unfortunately, now setting yourself on fire is absolutely a part of political speech. If only you knew, Stephen Bonnell. If only you knew.
Oh no, I wouldn't shove
With
my
them,
dick
I
in
can
face.
see the political statement quite clearly.
Okay.
So
hey, Abaddon, how are you?
Statement is here.
I don't know. I would have to find somebody that wants to shove their dick in the face. Maybe if we have maybe
self-indulgence, not political.
It's possible, or maybe it's Amos or whatever, and he wants to make a political statement about pedophilia. All I'm saying is that the idea of telling, sure,
or it's your most aggressive kink at Pride Parade. Listen. I want to thank the gays this year. So far, we have not had a kink at Pride discourse. I want to thank you for not shoving your genitals in the face of children this year. I have seen a few videos of that, but thankfully it's been relatively small. And I think the political scene, because of their exhaustion over the topic and having beaten it to death, nobody seems to be upping the charge in order to take on kink at Pride this year. So I want to thank the gays for not being too egregious in showing their genitals to children this year at their local friendly family Pride Parade. So thank you for that. Everybody say thank you to the gays in chat.
All I'm saying is that just because you're saying somebody can't do something, to reductio that to you're just pro censorship.
Okay, well, okay, fine.
Let's, okay, yeah. So let's go.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to prick feelings there. So what I mean is, I don't agree that there should be. I mean, you can make the argument ad nauseum that, well, I feel like a girl and I've done everything else I can do to be a girl, and I promise to tell my partner that I'm not fertile, and so I should be treated like a girl. And that's, maybe, that's your claim. That's what you're asking. And I might consider it yes. I might consider it no. There are lots of factors here.
Ooh, libertarian Sargon. That's interesting.
Okay. Let's say, okay, I'm going to ask you a broad question, okay? Are you ready?
I'm burning plastic in my office right now, so if I get lung cancer, it's absolutely your fault.
Do you think that the action itself is what you look at, or do you think it's kind of the consequence of the action that you kind of look at?
I think that all sorts of things matter. You've got intent, you've got procedure, and then you've got consequence.
Okay. So when I look at these things, for me, okay, so maybe this explains our different point of views. I generally look at the consequences of an action to determine whether or not I think the action is good or bad. So no! Something, and this kind of gets into hate speech, right?
Yeah, you're a utilitarian. Yeah.
This is how Vosh was born.
Well, that's what you just described.
Yeah. I would call myself a rural utilitarian, for sure. Yeah. But like when
it's not the worst thing to be.
Well, I mean, I think it's the best thing to be. That's why it's what I am. But let's say that we have a society that has a certain. Let's say that I created a society, and one of the expressions we used in society was "fuck Sargon," and we just said it every time something bad happened in society. We run a red light, a cop catches, we say "fuck Sargon." Everybody says that.
Like thanks, Obama.
Society. I don't trust me. You don't live in my head that much, okay? Let's say that in this society we have a whole bunch of people that call themselves Sargon, and all of them are kind of.
Isn't this cute? They're being nice to each other. Sargon is making some liberal statements. I can see why this is appealing, because it doesn't feel like the existential, horrific fucking blood sports of the past few years in which everything is going to be life and death because of our Twitch and YouTube stream debates. I see why this content is appealing, even if you dislike these people, they're at least able to talk, which is kind of fantastic in retrospect.
Sad that this exists, right? I don't really care at the end of the day why people are saying fuck Sargon. I don't care if there's reasons or not reasons. All I kind of say is at the end of the day, hey, there's some.
Somebody in Twitch chat is asking if I work for the FBI. No, I don't. I was local law enforcement for 4 years. Okay, I worked for city police. The highest I got to federal was we helped out the marshals. We helped the marshals apprehend a few fugitives a couple of times, but that's the only time I worked federal. I think we also had a DEA agent come in for one of our local SWAT raids or whatever. But again, nothing crazy. I've never worked federal. When people accuse me of being a Fed or whatever, I just say yes, because typically what Fed means in like libertarian or dissident circles is that you are somebody who would like you get intel on them and report them to the FBI. And the truth is that if a dissident right campaign or a libertarian, Boogaloo Boy organization was trying to like shoot a place up or blow a place up, I would absolutely call the federal authorities. Because no offense, like politics is about power and life and death and all that kind of stuff. But I don't really think there's anything in our current American politics that is worth massacring people over. Not yet. Not at this time. And there's a lot of fucking psychos out there on the internet who are saying some wild shit that I wish they would stop saying. I did make this. Is this too soon? I can't see the image. You're going to have to describe it to me.
Some behavior that exists in society and it hurts a group of people, we should find ways to get rid of that behavior, I think. I think that would be good. So when we look at things like transphobic language or hate speech or whatever, I don't know at the end of the day if the best way to do it is legally or through culture, whatever. But if there are forms of speech that either cause direct or indirect harm to people, I think that as a society, we should try to move away from that. I think that we should highly encourage people to move away from that. Yeah.
This is way more progressive, Steven.
At what point do you stop?
It would depend on what exactly we're talking about.
Well, I mean, hate speech then, I mean, if people start, like, if you outlaw hate speech and then you say, right, okay, you're going to go to jail for misgendering someone, something like that, and then people still keep doing it and they find like underground ways to misgender. I mean, how tyrannical are you willing to become?
So I think that the conversation around misgendering someone has to be done in a very specific way, because you can do this in a discriminatory way, like a place of business versus in your personal life. And I think that these are two very different things that have very different solutions. So, like, for instance,
but the question is, how tyrannical are you prepared to become?
Well, in the case of like owning a business, I'm okay with becoming very radical, such that like you lose your license to operate or you're not allowed to do something. Yeah, if you discriminate against a certain class of people, much the same way that I don't think a business should be allowed to operate if they discriminate against gay people or black people or whatever, right? Yeah.
Or women or men.
Yeah, sure.
I take it they shouldn't be. Right, so women's gyms are pretty fucked.
I think that we can both agree that there are reasonable exceptions to this, and that a women's gym or like a woman's shower. Okay, so you said earlier with semantics. We can do this. Yeah.
This debate is very much a product of its time. Excuse the interruption, but if you want to watch the original, go watch the original. So it's funny that Sargon is kind of going a little bit more extreme with it, which I think at the time people would have been less sympathetic to. But the truth is that he's in the United Kingdom, and the Commonwealth is a lot more Orwellian about language than the United States is. And then same thing with Canada. Canada's a lot more Orwellian with language than the United States is. So as a result, Stephen can kind of laugh this off a little bit. And the truth is that it's never really come to fruition in a meaningful way in the United States. But I think that as a Britbonger, if you wanted to talk about Asians or Asian grooming gangs, if you wanted to talk about demographic replacement and mass migration, if you wanted to talk about, pride parades and degeneracy in the streets, if you wanted to talk about Christian nationalism, then these are all things that can get a law enforcement officer to knock on your door, and they might not arrest you, but they'll definitely try to intimidate you out of doing that kind of shit again. And so it's actually really interesting looking at the difference between a American for whom this prophecy and anxiety has largely not come true versus a dissident thinker in the Commonwealth for whom this prophecy kind of has come true. This is actually really interesting looking back on.
Fine, go ahead.
No. Let's stop a second, because I don't agree that you're
Common Cure says Carl is much more right wing now, but ironically is less angry and looks more healthy in his videos. I don't think that necessarily has to do with like political orientation, although the right wing does promote fitness a little bit more. I think that more has to do with wealth and taking your health seriously as a result of having the means and resources and money and energy to do so. And by the way, good on him. I did say that he was capitalizing on the black pill on Twitter and that, he should stop doing that. And he blocked me because, he loves the marketplace of ideas. But, in general, good. I viciously dislike some of the content he puts out, but good on him for getting married, having children, taking his health seriously, et cetera, et cetera.
the side of the argument you're presenting is reasonable.
Okay.
And I think that people who believe that are not being reasonable. I don't think we can find a reasonable middle ground there.
So you think that if I were to say, I think that it's wrong to discriminate against classes of people for the purposes of employment because they create a society where whole groups of people can get fucked. You think that a good counter to that is, well, what about showers that only let in women? You think that's an effective counter to that position?
No, I didn't say showers.
Yeah, Destiny said
Gyms.
showers.
I mean, you've got, but this applies to all kinds of things.
Sure. Okay,
Like,
give me a
what
better
about-
example
what
than a
about-
gym. Okay. What about what?
What about, like movies? If you want to, what you're saying is you can never discriminate against someone on the basis of race for, say, someone playing a Zulu warrior or something in a movie. So we'll have a bunch of gingers playing Zulus and stuff like this. It's like, what these are.
Okay, wait. So, firstly,
I think this is probably why it's unfortunate, and I'm sorry for interjecting again, but hey, my show. I think this is probably why a lot of liberals didn't take like rightoid concern about the culture war very seriously in the late 10s, is because oftentimes rightoids would be posting to like cultural phenomena like art. They wouldn't be like posting to, looking at like the military or the military industrial complex, or, they wouldn't be posting or like looking at institutions that were of like significant importance. But now that you look at how absolutely fucking psychotic universities are in reference to Israel, Palestine, or if you look at how leftists in the Commonwealth are basically openly calling for the murder of Jews. I know that they say Zionists, but it's weird how it keeps, Venn diagramming over to Jewish civilians. I think that it was kind of easy for the liberals to dismiss these concerns. But as we've developed, I feel like these concerns, if anything, have gotten more and more validated with just how fucking insane the far left was willing to go in order to push their narrative and agenda. So on one hand, I think that Stephen is kind of correct to kind of pillory Sargon's examples. However, I feel like Sargon was kind of validated by time.
I think that there is a conversation to be had there, okay, in terms of like representation of media. But again, now we've gone from like things that have very good reasons for probably being gendered, like gyms or whatever, right? Depending on what we're talking about. And now we're moving on to like arts, right?
Okay.
So,
okay.
in like normal
let's
society,
go back
like,
to the thing then.
Sure.
Because this you hit on the thing. Things that have reason for existing, things that are like gendered, like gyms, right? I agree. I think that women-only gyms should be free to exist.
Okay.
I think that people should be able to self-associate in any way that they want. In that way, like I don't agree that
libertarian liberal Sargon, amazing.
Perhaps, but then you do get into the other side of it where you end up going, no blacks and stuff like this, and it's not a clear-cut issue.
So the clear-cutness part, I think, would be looking at like what are the impacts on society of a particular thing. So if we talk about like women's gyms, it seems like that's generally a positive impact, that that people like a place to work out where they kind of like look like each other or whatever. That's the thing. Now, honestly, I could be persuaded pretty easily against the existence of women's gyms. That's something that I could be persuaded against pretty easily, probably. And if we got to a situation where people were like in cities and like men literally couldn't fucking find gyms because every gym was a woman's gym, I would actually argue very much on the anti then. I would say, well, hold on, this is kind of bullshit. Why do we have women's only gyms? Like, they're literally men, right? Yeah. So like when we talk about now, generally this doesn't happen, right? This is very, very, very rare.
Yeah. But before we move on from that, the problem is you're not operating from any kind of principle, then, are you?
I'm absolutely operating from a principle.
You're waiting for other people to operate.
No,
all Mill's greatest happiness principle is an umpire. It's an umpire for dilemmas, right? So you are starting at the end, right? But the thing is, I think that there are many more, like, way deeper problems when you sit there and give the state the ability to redefine what a man and a woman is. I don't think the state should have that power. I think that the power to define what man and woman is should come from society itself. And that's why man and woman look like they do, because these are the most, I mean, if you want to make a utilitarian argument, I think these are the most functional methods.
Okay, let's
by which
move.
men
Let's
and women
move
can
away from
interact.
like. Well, let's
But I
pretend that
think,
we're
I
both.
think there
Let's
are
say. Let's
also
say.
other reasons.
Let's say we're
Sorry,
both
go on.
talking about society, okay? Because I don't want to get into like difference between state enforcement versus societal enforcement right now, because that's another.
Well, it's massively important.
Well, but it's more complicated than that, because I could make the argument that a state enforcement is literally society in and of itself, right? Because the state only draws power from society, and in a democracy,
you can't make that argument. No, you can't make that argument. Society is free association, and the state is.
Society is not free association. What do you mean?
Yes, it is.
So
it's free association.
right now, I can't go out and hurt anybody. Right now, I can't go out and steal anything. I can't engage in a ton of different acts. I can't drive on the road.
It's the difference between liberty and license.
Yeah, I'm actually with Sargon here. So if you look at society, an enduring and cooperating social group whose members have developed organized patterns or relationships through interaction with another. But like the state in a democracy can be an extension of the society. However, oftentimes when it is most criticized, particularly in a democracy, is when it's overstepping its authority in order to impose its will on segments of society that would rather not be oppressed upon. So just to say that, like, oh yeah, 60 or 70% of the population voted in order to enforce this norm, therefore 30% of the population should be oppressed. That's not particularly convincing to, one, a Republican, two, an American, three, somebody who believes like in the American Bill of Rights, or four, like critics of democracy, such as Benjamin Franklin. That's not a particularly like democratic compulsion through the state against unwilling actors is not a compelling argument to any of the groups that I just mentioned.
Say that.
Liberty means freedom to act without infringing on the rights of others, and license is just full freedom to act.
And where do the rights? Where do the rights of others come from? What are those secured by and protected by?
We consider them to be inherent to the people themselves.
Bullshit.
The rights,
the rights of other people come from the state. That's
oh no!
If I go out and I try to murder
human
someone,
rights are inherent within you, whether the state exists or not.
No, they're not.
The question
you don't have
is,
any
will
rights.
other people...
If 10 people.
Oh, this is exhausting. Okay. This is actually like Destiny is so materialist brain that it actually drives me crazy. So in nature, we were talking about the appeal to nature. Destiny kind of guffawed at the idea without explaining why he was guffawing it, right? Yeah, Gingermus Prime says everything within the state. And for those of you who don't know, that's a Benito Mussolini quote. Like nothing outside the state, everything within the state, nothing against the state. That's like a Mussolini quote. But so I believe in natural rights, and I think that the evidence of it, like, so for the right to self-defense, right? You can articulate that your right only exists insofar as the state allows you to do it. So for instance, if you look at North Korea, they likely do not give their citizens firearms. They don't give them, significant weapons or swords or crossbows or bows in order for them to be able to effect their self-defense. And not only that, they might permit some level of self-defense where if somebody hits somebody else can hit them back, but they will not permit you self-defense against the state, right? However, let's say that there was the Rohingya, right? The Rohingya or the Uyghur Muslims or the Yazidis in Iraq or something like that. They might not have rights extended to them by the state, but as they are being genocided, they have the right, the moral right to resist. Same thing with like a zebra that's about to be eaten by a crocodile. It doesn't have a state that gives it the authority to kick a crocodile in its face, but an exterior observer, probably even the crocodile itself, if it's capable of conceptualizing the use of force, would not fault the zebra for trying to flee or trying to kick a crocodile in the face. So the right to self-defense does not rely on the state to grant you permission to exercise it. So How do you feel about the Call of Duty 6 with its current controversy? I don't know. What happened? Did they Nicki Minaj do something? Did they post some gay shit? I don't fucking know. The number of discriminations and oppressions that have existed within society are quite often written into law. Yeah, I mean, that appealing to the authority of the state as the end all be all of rights is probably not the best way to go. I'm siding with Destiny on this one. Sorry, Common Cure. Well, hey, listen, you can, if you don't find my arguments compelling, that's totally fine. However, I think I'm right, and I think Destiny's wrong, and I think my example is perfectly fine. You can say that a right only exists insofar as you are able to actually use it. I'll agree with that. But if you're talking about like the ability to exercise your autonomy as a individual operating on the planet, that does not wholly come from the state.
People are born on a desert island in the middle of nowhere. Where are their rights at? How do they have intrinsic rights to
If
them?
one person is born on a desert island somehow, and their mother dies or whatever, how do their rights get infringed? How do their rights get infringed?
If something
If
tries
there
to
are
eat
no
them,
other people around, how can their rights be infringed?
I don't know. I don't even agree that rights exist or a thing that actually exists outside
Okay,
of like.
well there we go then.
Well,
Then
not
why are we having this
well,
conversation?
because you're trying to tell me that rights are some intrinsic thing to a human, and
Yeah,
they're not.
I think they are. I think they're, the freedom to act, freedom of conscience, freedom of thought, freedom of
Okay,
speech.
so then let's say that you want to.
bodily integrity. All of these things are they are inherent in you and require an outside force to interfere with.
No, these are things that literally are only like these.
No.
These are things that are guaranteed by the state. Without the state existing, you have no claim to any of these rights. Some tribe will roll through, will rape and murder all of you, and move on and steal your shit. Like
that's
yeah, but okay, so this is a decent example by Destiny if you want to follow the phrase, your rights only exist insofar as you are able to exercise them. This is a non-contradictory, it is not mutually exclusive to my perspective. My perspective, let's say Genghis Khan shows up tomorrow, rapes and murders everyone. Obviously, your right to conscience or freedom of speech or self-defense or infringement against a government or something like that, none of those were respected. Therefore, that right didn't really exist within that time. However, what I would say is that we kind of like project a just world out into the world as insofar as we understand like human history. And so we believe consciously through the social evolution of humanity that we should be able to think what we want to think without interference from exterior parties. We should be able to articulate what we want to think as long as it doesn't hurt other people or promote harm to other people. And if somebody aggresses upon us, we have the right to try to protect our lives. These are things that, again, if you were an outside observer and you saw a town that was resisting Genghis Khan sacking the town, you're not going to morally indict the town for resisting Genghis Khan. So again, and there was no state to enforce the contract between Genghis Khan and the town. There was no state necessarily in the town if it was like a semi-autonomous like tribal group. So the state did not need to exist in order to guarantee those rights, in order those people to exercise what we view as like moral behavior.
That's all I'm saying is without outside interference, these rights are inherent to you. If you're left alone on a desert island, you can move, think, speak, and act in exactly the way you want.
True, Gingermus. True.
Okay. So what if I'm on an island? What if I'm on an island and I start saying mean things to another person? How is that?
I don't know.
Wait. How is that a right of mine if I'm impacting another person like that?
Because you can move your mouth.
Okay. What if I want to move my What if I want to move my fist into a person's face? Is that okay?
Well, that's the difference between liberty and license.
Wait. Why? They could just move away.
Okay. Well, I don't really want to get into silly games with you.
So you keep saying this, but your positions are completely and totally unfounded. Like I feel like you've like it sounds like somebody that is in high school that kind of like read something from like the Libertarian Manifesto, and then you kind of have like the one line, but like as soon as I push you, like, well, what does it actually mean to have rights? You're laughing at me because you can't.
No, see, here's the thing. This is again where it's like it's easy. I would say easier from Destiny's perspective to be able to needle a positive argument forwarded by somebody else instead of forwarding his own positive argument. So the argument here between liberty and license, this is also an argument between liberty and freedom. This is something that I had to have somebody explain to me. So freedom is ability, right? The ability to do something. I can smoke a cigarette. I can drink a beer. I can drive a car. I can have a family. I can buy a piece of property, et cetera, et cetera. These are all things that I am free to do. They're within my capacity, et cetera, et cetera. Liberty, on the other hand, is the infringement of the state to moderate your freedom. So it's kind of looking at the same problem of autonomy, and freedom is your ability to do, and liberty is the government not interfering. And so it literally took like an hour of explanation from somebody for me to understand why they weren't synonymous. And it's because capacity versus infringement from an authority. That's the difference between the two. And so Sargon said that like a couple of times, but I do think that it's interesting that Destiny's pushing back on the moral framework of like, well, why aren't I free to punch someone? And the reason why, if Sargon was, paying attention and at least was thinking the same way that I was thinking, the reason why you don't have a natural right to strike another human being is that violence should have some form of justification. If you're hunting, you should need food and sustenance. If you are eradicating a pest, it should be because they are infringing on your ability to survive in some other way. If you are cultivating a field, if you're maintaining a homestead, if you're doing something like that, it should serve some kind of purpose. And so purpose is often like a justifiable purpose is oftentimes how we justify both good and bad behavior. So if Sargon said, well, you do have the right to strike another person, but you don't have the right to strike another person unprompted. And if you were the person who was making utterances that were offensive to the other person, which would get into Destiny's argument, to the point that they felt like violence was justified, then at that point, they're exercising their rights. But that's, you're kind of getting into this mess where then you get into where is the line, which I'm sure is ultimately where this conversation is going to end up.
Can't define any of it because it's an absurd concept. It's an absurd conversation.
No, I don't agree. I don't agree. I think, what do you need defining? I've defined everything.
Let's say that I can produce a measurable harm on somebody by uttering certain words to them, or let's say that I can produce a measurable harm on them by hitting them. I'm asking you to clarify the difference between these two actions.
Well, it's obviously on a scale, isn't it?
I don't know, is it? I'm asking you.
Well, it must be. I mean, like, I don't even know what kind of measurable harm you would think. I mean, it really depends how you're defining what harm is. I mean, normally we can consider harm to be...
Sorry, there's actually some interesting things going on in chat, so I'm just going to pause momentarily to address them. So Electoral Run 316 says, like COVID lockdown restrictions, for an example. See, this is the interesting part of politics and governance and rights and responsibilities and all that kind of stuff. So when you're talking about COVID lockdowns, let's go back to my, not analogy, if you can't see the screen, but basically I have two hands. Bottom one is freedom, top one is liberty. So freedom is capacity to do something. Liberty is the state intervening in order to prevent you from doing something. But ultimately, they're like similar in the concept of freedom, right? So freedom. During COVID, you could get in a car. You could drive to a restaurant. You could not wear a mask. You could smoke cigarettes. You could do a whole bunch of things. But your liberty was infringed upon by the state because they said that you should only drive your car minimally to social spaces. You should only engage in social spaces minimally. If you do go to a social space, you should wear a mask. If you do go to a social space, you should maintain like 6 feet of distance. You should do all these things. And so those are infringements on liberty. But the justification from the state's perspective is that there was a disease that was strong enough that if it hit the entire population, if it did maximal damage, it could kill 0.5% to 2% of the population. And so as a result, the economic and social devastation that would be wreaked, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, wreaked, whatever, by that disease justifies the state limiting your liberty. So you can disagree with that. I have no problems with it. As a matter of fact, I'm in the beautiful anarchic state of Florida where we basically just anybody with a weak immune system, any old person, anybody who caught it, who was going to die, we just let them get slaughtered by the disease. So, and as a result, I think our economy did better than most other states. And not only that, we didn't take on the necessary secondary and third tertiary consequences of that. And as a result, a lot of people look to Florida as a beacon of freedom and liberty. And as a result, we got a shitload of people who moved here and skyrocketed our housing prices, which if you already lived here and owned property was decent. So yeah. So there was a time in America when people were pissed that drinking and driving became a crime. Some would describe it as the rights being taken away. True. Lockdown and mandates were never fine. True. So yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, but if we had, let's say, what's that one disease that makes you shit blood to death? I'm trying to think of what it is. It's Ebola. So if we had an Ebola outbreak that was as bad or as contagious as COVID, then there might be a justification for the state to intervene in order to prevent unnecessary death. So, yeah. Absurd concept. It's literally what the U.S. was founded on. This is why Destiny's newly found love for the Constitution and norms rings hollow to me. Well, see, Gingermus, you have to give people time to evolve. Okay, so you gotta give them time. So Nick, too bad for you, says, ha 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 ha. 36 viewers. Poor Connor sold his rep for Woo Bucks. Listen, we started 45 minutes ago, 50 minutes ago. We have 51 viewers cross-platform. It's a Sunday night at 10:15 p.m. I'm not really a streamer. I'm more like a Warhammer YouTuber. And by the way, business is a booming. So I'm going to take that because, Nick, too bad for you. Admiral Gibbs said something shitty like that actually pissed me off. So I'm going to share. I'm going to take an opportunity to share a little story. The Multiculturalist James says, hey, Connor, happy Sunday. Hope your weekend is going great. It is. Thank you. So let me toot my own horn a little bit to the 53 people that I have cross-platform right now. I'm swimming in it. I'm a 50 viewer Andy on a Sunday night. So on the YouTube side, it was a little anxiety inducing because we got a nasty gram from Games Workshop that asked us to take down 3 or 4 reactions that were about 2 years old. The reactions were algorithmically always doing pretty well, but the truth was they weren't sufficiently transformative. They did basically just react Andy to some Warhammer videos, and that was good. But when we unlisted them, it kind of hurt the metrics. I literally took like a 30 or 40% hit because I had to unlist like 5 or 6 videos. But what happened is I did my Bolter video and I redid the videos in the new format. And what happened was basically a slingshot. So it was like a U shape where it was like 40% hit. And then we literally jumped back into not only where we were, but a little bit better. And so as a result, my revenue is a little bit higher than usual. Now, I'm not rich. I'm not retiring. I'm not going full time, but it's actually been a really good month. So Nick, too bad for you. Eat my asshole. Xrox Fist, not true. They're always fine. I'd warranted. The question is when they are warranted. True. Your next 367 says, I disagree about Ebola would justify mandates or lockdowns and ask is the limit of the power granted to the state in my honest opinion. Yeah, you're next. You can think that, and like a lot of libertarians think similar to you and all that kind of stuff, but then that's where we get into how far do your rights extend? So you can say that as a citizen of a free country, I have the right to travel and socialize as I please. But if a bunch of armed men show up and force you to do otherwise, are you really able to exercise that right? And the answer is probably no. So you might have the right to, but you might not be able to exercise that right. And is it worth dying over when people are shitting themselves to death? My answer with somebody with children is going to be no. If Ebola was as contagious as COVID, then I would probably stay indoors and minimize contact and wear a mask. And I would be doing that voluntarily. But if the government asked people to do it, I'd be like, yeah, I don't want the entire population to shit blood to death just because libertarians want to go out and socialize. Not really my thing. Kayabaro says, your YouTube streams never show up for me anymore. Well, I'm not live on Counterpoints 40K. We're live on Counterfire, which was my backup channel, which I started uploading all my political content to. So that could be why. So you should go to Counterpoints 40K. you should go into the description. You should follow Counterfire, and then that's where all the political content is going to be going forward. Listening in during my workout, loving your commentary and same take so far. Thank you, Mr. Boop. We appreciate you. Get some for the rest of us. Lift those weights, rip those muscles, get a good workout in. We are very proud of you. Developer. Both of them are midwits, but at least Sargon read a bit. Destiny just read Wikipedia and uses Jewish rhetorical tricks. Fuck. You developer. That's funny, though. I've actually liked the most recent Sargon vids. Most of his stuff has felt unhinged, but now he seems more reasonable. Interesting. I should check it out. Probably a grift. We'll see. All right. I got to get back to the content in a second, but I do appreciate y'all humoring me. Yes, it's worth dying for those who trade safety for liberty, desire neither. Okay. Or deserve neither. You lead the charge. You're next. I'll be right behind you.
Sort of physical violence, you know, like what you're talking about, like punch someone in the head. That's a direct physical act. There are definitely ways of harming people.
Sorry, real quick, we have to address this. Multiculturalist James asks, random Warhammer question, are there any factions that are based in Indian culture? I was just thinking of AOS's Grand Cathay for ancient China. The Tau have a caste system that is very similar to India, but they use Japanese Gundam suits, and they have kind of like a Maoist Chinese communist vibe, but their caste system is very Indian. So if you wanted to Indian the Tau, you absolutely could.
Well, that aren't with you physically attacking them, but they're usually quite identifiable and are not usually caused by simply speaking to someone.
Okay, so what I'm asking for, again, is for you to give me the difference between these two things. Let's say that I have somebody in an island, and let's say every single day I go to this person, I say, you're an ugly neckbeard fuck, I hope you kill yourself. And after 2 weeks, he finally does it because it's too much for him. He can't handle it every single day. Let's say I get 5 other people to do this, right? That's okay. But if I walk up to the person and I hit him, that's
no, I don't know
wrong.
if that is okay. I don't think that is okay.
Okay, so
well, would it be because bullying or something like that?
Would you call that? Would you call that hate speech or?
No, I wouldn't call that hate speech.
So,
but then neither would someone who believed in hate speech call that hate speech.
Okay, well, I don't know. So you're telling me
that call that like stalking and harassment.
Produce.
Sorry for interrupting already, but we would call that stalking and harassment, and that is already illegal based off, like, regardless of immutable characteristics.
Neckbeard a protected class?
No, because neckbeard isn't something you're born with; it's a lifestyle you choose. So different thing.
God damn.
Yep. So
I'm never going to be impressed.
So let's say I can produce a measurable harm on somebody.
That was cute. Look, they're being nice to each other.
Them. What are the differences between these two things? Okay.
Why do I have to explain the differences between speaking mean words to someone and hitting them to you? I mean, I just did that.
No, you didn't. So you're hardcore. So you're begging the question, right? You keep saying like, well, obviously the difference is hitting them versus speaking. But I'm asking you to illustrate that difference.
I explained the difference. I don't think that the measurable. I don't like. Obviously, whenever you're defining something like harm, that's a subjective term, right? It's what I might consider to be harmful, you might not consider to be harmful, right? So we have to have negotiation on what we consider to be harm. And I don't think that just saying things that people disagree with or don't even like or whatever is necessarily harm. I don't think that would be included in my standard.
Wait, then why did you say earlier that you thought if you had 5 people all shouting at someone that they're a neckbeard fuck until they kill themselves, you said that would be harmful?
Because that's different. You've got a closed environment where it's like 5 or 6 people on an island, and 5 of them are constantly bullying and harassing and ostracizing the other one.
Okay, let's say that's not
obviously going to cause social problems, but that's not the same thing.
Sure. Okay, so let's change it a little bit. Let's say they're not directly saying it, but let's say
why can't we just talk about the actual ideas, man?
Sure. Well, let's talk about the actual ideas. Sure.
So
let's say
up, right?
No. Okay, fine. We can talk about the actual ideas. Let's say that there are people like Benjamin, Carl, Sargon, Avocado, or whatever, who get online and they make YouTube videos about how trans women are.
Going through another hypothetical. We've been through.
I'm using real life examples. Okay. You and a ton of other people engage in rhetoric that is incredibly transphobic and has a measurably harmful impact on the lives of people that are trans people. Sure, we can. We can look at the suicide rates of these types of people. We can look at the.
And how are you gonna demonstrate that I've contributed to that?
It's very fucking difficult. I mean, you've got to do it with a ton of fucking longitudinal studies. It's difficult. It's not impossible. It's difficult.
You're not going to be able to. And I don't think I am, because I don't really say much about transgenderism.
I mean, you just came on to have an hour discussion with me about it, and you've tweeted things in the past.
Previous to this point, Destiny, believe it or not, I've actually done things, and not many of those things actually involve trans people.
Okay, you literally tweeted that trans women weren't real women. Like, you literally have tweeted this. What?
They're not. The fact
but I'm saying you've tweeted this, so you distinguish them. Sure.
Like,
so you've tweeted this before. So I mean, like, you have talked about this.
Yeah.
Maybe not much. I mean, we could talk about
one tweet. Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's just one. I didn't follow every single tweet you've done. I'm sorry. We could talk about that, something like Black Lives Matter or something more, or feminism or something more. I mean, like, there are tons of these kinds of movements.
Well, we can if you want to change the subject, and I mean, I'm happy to do it. Okay, look, I don't know why you're so confrontational. I was talking to you because I really enjoyed your appearance on Jesse Lee Peterson. It was just the most fun thing to watch because he just keeps framing a question in a kind of closed way and then beats that person with the question. He does it with everyone, and you handled it quite well. So did Hassan Piker, actually. But yeah, I don't know why this has to be such a confrontational thing. But I mean, okay, so let's just finish off the trans.
Can I explain that? Let me explain it, okay? This is why I'm so confrontational, okay? Because it seems like when I talk to people, I'm going to say people like you, based on our last conversation and things that I've seen, kind of center-leaning people that say they're liberal or whatever say, right? The problem is that if I create a society where every single day white people go out and they lynch black people, they literally kill them, that people like you would say those people are racist and that's horrible. And I would agree, and we would all agree. But if I create a society where everybody is saying, you know what? I don't think black people should be in video games or movies, and I don't think I should have to date black people. I don't think black people should necessarily be guaranteed the right to work, blah, blah, blah. Then what happens is that we can create a society that causes a measurable harm towards different types of people, but people like you will defend that under some weird context.
I don't agree that I would defend that.
Oh, how times have changed. And on top of that, it's really interesting seeing this entire language because we've seen how this has evolved over the past half decade or decade. So if we're talking about like minority representation in video games, I think the frustration, I'll share my frustration because obviously I'm a fucking bigot or whatever. So my frustration is I just want normal shit. Like I want normal, I want cis, straight, white, or I want the ability to create my character, right? So, and it doesn't have to be every single game, right? Like Tomb Raider should obviously be Tomb Raider, right? If you're making a video game about Bantu fucking warriors or whatever, they should obviously be black. If you're making a video game about samurai, I think they should probably be Asian. I think that if you're making a video game about Rome, they should probably be Italian, or they should be from a territory that, Rome conquered. So it's not like, especially when it comes to historical stuff. Now, if you want to talk about like science fiction, do whatever the fuck you want. I think the biggest soy bullshit of the past year was that guy freaking out because they had like gender customization in a science fiction video game that was like set a few hundred years into the future. And it's like, well, a few hundred years in the future, if transhuman cults are anything like they are right now, then like multiple pronoun choices will be probably pretty tame compared to like the genetic engineering or the transhuman robot bullshit that we'll be doing at that time. So freaking out about that doesn't feel particularly straight and normal, or it doesn't feel realistic, I guess. But it does feel like a healthy chunk of the time, progressive game developers are like, hey, you're not going to like this, are you, cis straight white man? We're doing this to make you angry so you don't feel comfortable in your own, in your own little niche. And it's like, yeah, fuck you, fuck you. This is my niche. And on occasion, I want to be relaxed and enjoy my cis straight white male video game. This is why I'm ecstatic about Space Marine 2. We got Captain Titus back. He's asexual. He probably hates women. He does steroids. He kills Xenos. He has an Asian friend and a black friend. They're all going to be murdering the shit out of Tyranids. It's going to be great. I'm very much looking forward to that. L-Take, I want trans robots. Listen. That's okay. We can all have our interests. I will be picking the most boring vanilla white male shit. How about a video game about the cast of Hamilton? Yeah, Hamilton is fucking wild. Hamilton is a Filipino guy who wrote a play casting predominantly black people who are playing the white founding fathers, some of whom own slaves. In that way, it's actually one of the most American expressions of art in all of history. My wife loves that shit. I think it's kind of like mid to above average. I think I would have thought it was good if I had come into it fresh, but a lot of people just soyed the fuck out about it, and I think they kind of ruined it for me. And we get multiplayer in Zinch Marines. Let's go. True. Oh man. All right. White get to play the British. True. All right, sorry. Let's continue. I'm getting distracted. My bad.
Okay, that's the feeling that I get. That when I talk to somebody like you, unless I can show you,
Why?
because literally
Oh my god. So Jonathan Groff is perfect as King George. I love all of the King George songs. I think the second one in particular, where he's like, "You'll be back, you'll see." I fucking love that shit. Honestly, if to the 50 or so people cross platform, literally watch Jonathan Groff King George like songs. There's like 3 songs of them. They're all phenomenal. I love those songs in particular.
earlier, you were challenging my statement that having all of society be transphobic can produce immeasurable harm on trans people. You challenged that statement, like you didn't believe it. So that leads me to believe that you would challenge other statements where I would say, hey, hate speech can lead to demonstrable harm. Okay, go ahead.
I think that there definitely can be demonstrable harm, like from a society that is openly transphobic. But the problem is, I don't agree that transphobia is not agreeing to linguistic changes of the fundamental sort of building blocks of our society. Because whether you like it or not, language really does affect everything we do. And the thing that the transgender activists are attacking is literally the foundation of all of civilization.
It's so
I'm uncomfortable with them going for something that fundamental.
Man, isn't this so
Okay,
much
so-
more? This is so much more reasonable. It's actually really frustrating knowing how far Sargon has fallen from this position.
what if changing that fundamental thing can produce a higher overall happiness for everybody in society?
Happiness sucks.
I don't think it will. I think that when you disconnect the concept of male and female, man and woman, sorry, from the biological reality of male and female, then you are acting as if these social constructs are transcendental. And to say that they are transcendental means that they can be replaced at any time for any reason, because there's no particular reason that they're in their place now.
I mean, that's
And
true.
once you
They
start
can be
doing
replaced.
that,
They're not biologically
I don't
essential.
agree. Well, I mean, it's a different. Again,
They're
it's a
biologically
huge concept.
correlated.
Well, but
But
it's kind of the center point to our conversation. If you think that like male and female are
Okay,
like,
can you name a society that doesn't have male and female?
yeah,
man
I
and
know
woman,
that like
sorry.
there is like a fucking I want to say in older India, didn't they have 3 genders? I'm not as well read on history. I'm really bad about it. But,
Yeah,
like,
no, I know what you mean. There is what is considered to be a third gender.
Hey, is the F slur allowed on YouTube? Hey, Nick, you're getting a timeout. You're being a fabbit. Next one, you're gone, and you can eat my asshole. I don't know if you were there for my whole like 2 to 3 minute rant about how Warhammer 40K is doing, but obviously streaming on a Sunday night for 2 hours is not going to be peak viewership. And this is a 5-year-old debate that I am creating content on. So if it's not for you, that's fine. Fuck off. If it is for you, you're welcome to stay. If you're going to keep commenting in snide and rude ways, then I'm going to remove you from my safe space, because this is my safe space. I'm the moderator. I'm in charge. I can do what I want to do. And you can eat a bowl of dicks as far as I'm concerned. As a matter of fact, I wish I had a bowl of dicks that I could throw out into your fucking living room like the slovenly fucking pig dog that you are, and you could just gobble them all up. That's what I wish for you. So eat my whole asshole. And I hope you stub your toe.
In like some Indian culture somewhere, right?
okay,
But that's obviously an outlier. That's obviously not represent. I mean,
Okay,
like
sure.
even tribes.
But,
in
like-
the
Hold on, we got a question. Only Aimer Bill says, is the other guy Sargon far left at this common sense type take? No, he was a classical liberal, which really means that he was like center right at the time. Realistically, he would say centrist, but he would have said that he was like center left. But Destiny was more progressive at the time, and realistically, the shit is far left. So that's why. Sean Kaplan says, dude, I appreciate that you aren't a one-note Andy. Keep doing multiple topics and interests. Thank you, Sean Kaplan. Appreciate it. It's a Chud fan. Well, we will love Chud long after he no longer loves us, okay? It'll be like, what's that band? It's, is it Stevie Nicks? It's something like that. It's not Stevie Nicks, but it's another band around there that you can go your own way. Go your own way. You can call it thunder along the way. Oh, it's Fleetwood Mac. So you know how Fleetwood Mac allegedly they started like cheating on each other, and they were banging other people, and they were breaking up, but they wrote some really kick-ass fucking music while they were breaking up or whatever. That will be our relationship with Chud Logic. Okay. I will love Chud long after he no longer loves me, and we will create fantastic music together. Parallax says, please talk shit to chat more. Okay, I will. Isaiah says, based, fuck viewer count. Yeah, you just got to get out here and make content. If you're worried about viewer count, you're never going to start. And that's the thing too, is we're not consistent. We're not consistent at all. We show up maybe once a week in order to do counterfire. Brianna is currently getting surgery, which is unfortunate. And I would love to do this all the fucking time. I would love to do this every day. As a matter of fact, I would say that's probably the key to streaming, is you have to show up every single day so people know when to catch you. But part of the reason why I don't promote my own streams a lot is because I'm erratic and I have other shit to do. And I'm sorry to you, fine folk who have shown up tonight. What is Sargon now ideologically? So this is me being an asshole and hip shooting. I swear to God, I think he's like a dissident right neo-monarchist. That's like the exterior vibe that I've gotten. If anybody wants to correct me in chat, I'm happy to be corrected, but that's what I got from the way that he shit talks everything right now. I'm hoping Space Marine 2 is going to be a good game. I have a feeling it will be. I would not worry too much. It has good bones. So he went from center right to alt right. So I would call it dissident right. Alt-right was alternative right, coined by Richard Spencer. It was used kind of, hi, Jonah Boy, good to see you. It was used as kind of like an umbrella term for the dissident right back in 2016. But what really happened is the white nationalists kind of co-opted it, and they claimed to be larger than they were and more relevant in the movement than they were. And then what happened was the 2016 Charlottesville car attack, where a young lady unfortunately was killed and half a dozen to a dozen people were injured. And as a result, it fractured. What I would say has still stood the test of time is the dissident right, which is basically a loose collection of alternative thinkers, which I know alternative is in the root word, but you have neo-monarchists, you got fascists, you have anarchists, you got ANCOMs, ANCAPs, you got all sorts of people who kind of generally affiliate with not identifying with the Republican Party, but still identify with the right wing. And so I would refer to them as dissident. That way they don't have to correct you. Yeah, iCalrich says, ironic given that it was called Unite the Right. Literally. The event that was created in order to solidify distant right-wing opinion ended in a homicide and completely fractured the online right. Pretty crazy. I can't believe people are skeptical about Space Marine 2. I don't think it's related to the trailers. I think it's just related to Games Workshop. They have fumbled a few times from a public relations perspective. So I think that's what people are anxious about. But yes, let's continue.
Amazon have
this appeal to history to try to talk about like prescriptive behaviors for society is not interesting to me, because it's not how I think about any of my moral statements. Like if somebody were to come to me like, hey, do you think that like how should we treat animals, or how should we treat some group of people? Like my go-to is never like, well, in history, like how do we do it?
Why doesn't he let him finish the idea before interjecting?
I'm not really appealing to history. What I'm trying to point out is that the the sexual differences between male and female is part of the human condition,
Okay.
and it ends up evolving out of it gender roles of man and woman, and these differ between cultures, obviously,
Okay.
but they're always distinct, and they're distinct for a reason. And I don't think we should start messing around with that.
Why not?
And because as soon as you start unmooring that from the biological reality of being a male or female, then you open it up to almost anything, and there's no real good argument to stop them from being completely perverted until they don't really mean anything at all.
Anti-realists.
But I think they do
Let's
need
say-
to mean something.
let's
I think
say that
to really
actually
sort of
happens,
open
right?
Families,
I mean,
you
like,
do actually need.
but the thing is
like,
that
these kind of roles.
this has already happened, right? Like if I go back like 70 years ago, right? Men typically didn't have long hair. Men didn't wear earrings or jewelry. You know,
Well,
men didn't do certain things. But now, if we look at like some of the manliest men today, are fucking decked out in jewelry or have very long hair, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like these
it
types of
doesn't
things.
matter.
So I mean, like
That
these.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, so I wonder if Destiny would be as passionate. Like, I wish I could take the Vosh Aqua debate and then I could like psychically download it into 2019 Destiny, because the amount of psychic damage that man would take would be fucking amazing.
Matter.
Wait, what doesn't matter?
The expression of the gender role itself doesn't really matter, you know. I mean, it could be that all men are supposed to wander around in ball gowns or something, and all women wander around in three-piece suits. It really doesn't matter. But what matters is that they are distinct and defined,
Why does that matter?
because then
The
people can use them as
optimization
plot lines to
of
communicate and
biological
interact.
reproduction.
Yeah, but like, let's say hypothetically, let's say even that did happen, that these things start to wash into each other like quite a bit. Why would that be so bad?
Because I think they're necessary.
Oh, Nick, too bad for you did remind me of something. Like the stream. So if you are on Twitch and you're not already following, follow. If you have a dono or whatever, go ahead and dono it. If you are on YouTube, go ahead and like the stream. It is free. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. If ring the bell, that way you see whenever we're posting stuff. And then also, if you have donos, super chats, whatever, feel free to give it. If you're brokies, don't worry about it. We're just here to have some fun.
Necessary for people to get along and to be able to form predictable relationships. Again, it's a method of communication. Like we can't take that away from the idea of gender identity. It's
You don't
something
have to
that
take it
is-
away. Like,
Well, you kind of are.
No,
As soon
you're
as you start
not.
saying all the definition, of course you are. What does it mean when you start like undefining things?
it
Then
depends
you're
on the
taking
definition.
away a
Like,
concept.
for me personally, okay, I prefer to date people with vaginas. That's my personal sexual preference. If I expand the definition of women to include trans women, right? That doesn't bother me much, right? If I find out what somebody's genitals are, whatever, before we fuck or whatever, that's fine. It's no skin off my back. It doesn't harm me at all. If this creates a
Okay.
measurably massive positive impact, though, for people that do identify that way, then yeah, sure, that's really easy for me to do. It's not bothering me. It's no skin off my back. It's not destroying society.
And for you, that's fine. But for someone else, that might not be fine, and you have no authority with which to impose it on them. And that's why when the state does impose it on them, it's tyrannical.
Well, everything the state imposes on you is tyrannical by that definition. Like
No, I don't
taxes.
agree.
Do you think
I don't
taxes are tyrannical?
No,
How is stealing money from you not tyrannical? But
it's not stealing money. But let's not get into the taxation.
well,
Come on, that's
it's the
well
perfect-
off the beaten path.
it's absolutely in line, right? The reason why we're okay with taxation.
I don't agree.
Okay. Well, in my understanding of it, the reason why we're okay with taxation is because even though we're taking money from individuals, we are creating a higher positive net benefit with that money. The total utility created for society is going to be higher than if that person had just kept their money. Much the same way
Okay.
that by changing a definition of, say, trans men and men to just calling everybody men or whatever, at least socially, right? Much the same way that can produce a higher overall utility for society. That people that are cisgendered men aren't really affected that much. It doesn't really matter that much. And then people that are trans men are much happier as a result of it.
Yeah, but what I think you're doing is just effectively setting up a new aristocracy. I don't think that you're increasing happiness overall. If you want to be sectarian, that's fine. But I don't think that imposing language on the majority of the population by force is going to increase.
Okay, what if it's just by social pressure? What if it's just by a lot of social pressure?
I don't agree that would be necessarily conducive to the greatest happiness either.
Okay, let's just talk about social pressure since the state force stuff gets a little bit more complicated. Like,
Well, it does, but unfortunately, we're in a position where the state is actually enforcing it. And I mean, I would, even if you believe all of the things that you believe, there's no particular reason that you should think the state should enforce that.
oh no, I absolutely have reasons for it, of course.
Well, no, I mean you could obviously, but like it's
Sure.
not necessary.
It is for what I believe to be a good or just society, sure. That when people come
I
together,
bet it is.
sure. So when people come together, people can create more value between themselves than they could independently. Do you agree with that, right? That two people can have some level of
Aw.
happiness, but two people together, instead of individually, can create happiness between them. That
Sean Kaplan says, never understood the importance of feminine qualities until I dated the most feminine woman recently. There's something so special about dating someone who allows my positive masculinity to shine. That's actually interesting. I've kind of always gravitated towards more aggressive women. I think that my family tends to be more aggressive, even on the feminine side. You know, we're ethnically Irish, so women tend to be a little bit mouthy and tend to be a little aggressive. And so I've dated definitely both. But I think you're right that if your girl gets all dolled up, she wears a nice dress, she puts on some perfume, you go out on a date, she holds your arm, you open the door for her, all that kind of stuff. I think there is something special about kind of that like symbiotic social interaction. It is beautiful. Isaiah Evans says, Connor got that trauma. He's looking for the crazy hose. No. All women are fucking crazy. And I found my crazy woman. So, no. Owen Benjamin, of all people, has a fantastic quote where he says, like, the most noble thing you can do as a man is instead of jumping from crazy woman to crazy woman is to look one crazy woman in the eyes every day and say, I love you. And Owen Benjamin is a fucking psycho, but he's right about that. Saturday Atlas says, hola. I say, hola. ¿Cómo se llama? Me llamo Connor. Soy bien. ¿Y tú?
couldn't have been experienced by either person. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I guess it depends on the person, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Person in
okay.
question,
generally
you know.
speaking, when people
Yeah, sure.
most people don't want to
okay,
be
generally speaking.
the
I'm happy to
Unabomber
concede
living
that,
out in the middle of the forest. Okay.
No,
So,
I'm happy to.
So if we expand,
you were speaking as if it was an absolute. But I'm happy to concede that generally, humans, social creatures, prefer to be with one another. Yeah.
So if we expand this outward and outward, we have different systems. We can use economics even to describe interactions between different groups of people, where we can understand that value can be created. It's not a finite thing. There's not a finite amount of value in the world. That multiple people coming together.
I'm gonna slog through this for the sake of completion, but I'm not gonna lie, they are kind of dragging around the same point a little bit. So let's see if they get anywhere new by the end of it.
Can create value for other people that they wouldn't have otherwise experienced themselves, or the other people wouldn't have experienced, right? If you have people that sit and so I would say that because we all should want to experience the maximum amount of utility or value or happiness in our lives, right? We're all kind of invested in everybody else's happiness or utility or value. That if you start to have people that only serve as like a net drain on everybody else, that these people are undesirable and should be like, you should try to change these people.
Yeah, I'm getting a little ADD with it because they're not really holding my attention. But Louis Salazar says, isn't Destiny usually the one who interrupts all the time? Yes, he is. And as a matter of fact, what's kind of happening is Destiny will start articulating a concept, a complex concept, and then Sargon is interrupting. But then it's not particularly combative, and it doesn't feel like they're raising up new points. So I'll see if I. You know what? We're going to buckle down, chat. Okay, we're going to buckle down. We're gonna stem our attention deficit disorder. We are going to crank our brains in order to make sure that we're actually paying attention. And I am going to see if we can actually go ahead and pull some gold out of this third sandwich, because it started out stronger. Now it's meandering a little bit, but hey, that's the way conversations are. Vulcan Blackfire says, my wife is perfectly okay with being an independent woman, taking care of herself for the most part, but there are many things she would like me to fill in as the standard male role, and I'm mostly happy to oblige. Shit works for us. I agree with you. That's what my wife often says. She says that just because I can do something doesn't mean that I want to do it, and she uses that as an excuse whenever we have to take out the trash.
Should be like an active effort.
What should happen to the undesirables?
I don't know. So, I mean, we're talking social pressure at this point. I mean, there's like a ton of different avenues that this can happen in, right? Whether it's how we teach people, or how we talk to people, or how we interact with our friends, or how we talk to other people online, or the terms of service we have in things like Twitter or Facebook. I mean, there's a million.
What if the undesirables simply don't agree with an ideological precept? What if they don't believe that God is real?
then it really depends on the topic that we're talking there, on what area you go to, right?
Well, historically, society ostracized and tried to kill these people.
Sure, and depending on what your position is on what topic, yeah, I think that's an okay measure, sure.
Nice. Nice.
Okay. Well, I
Nice.
don't agree that society should just be free to tyrannize its minorities.
Okay, cool. So let's ask a question. Let's say that you
Aw,
are a
classic
black person in the
Sargon.
United States, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's say that somebody walks up to you and they put a gun to your head. Do you think you have the right to actively stop that person?
Of course.
I know I do.
Okay, let's say that you know that a person is going to come up to you and put a gun to your head. Can you take preemptive action against that person, or do you have to wait for them to pull the trigger?
If you've got good justification for belief of intent, yeah, I think you can, can't you?
Okay, let's
I'm
say
not a
that.
legal expert.
Sure.
I assume you can.
Let's say that there is one man, and let's say that he gives the orders to send people to kill you. One guy is going to send 5 people to try to kill you. Do you think you have the moral authority? Now, I'm assuming it perfect. You know for a fact this kind of. Do you think that you have the moral authority to act against this person if he's sending people to actually kill you?
If he's sending people to kill me, yes.
Okay. Now, one more step back. Let's say that you have people like Richard Spencer who are advocating for a system that would inevitably lead to state-sanctioned violence, forcing you from your home. Do you think you have the moral authority to act in violent means against these people?
Well, no, because I mean, the equivalent of what you're asking. If I thought that some crippled boy in a wheelchair was going to try and find a way to kill me, would I be justified in killing him even though he can't move? No, of course not. He can say
What?
everything that he wants, but he can't act on that.
Okay, no,
Richard Spencer
no,
Oh,
wait,
hold
hold
on. This is good. I like this. I'm gonna write this down. Thank you, Destiny. Destiny finally gave us a nice little morsel nugget. If you know someone is going to commit violence against you, do you have the right to act preemptively? And I'm actually curious how he's going to wrap this back around, because I don't think that you can really say that in the trans argument there is a direct analogy. So, for instance, oftentimes, I think, anyways, what a lot of trans exclusionary radical feminists talk about is that they do not view trans women as women, and they do not view trans men as men. They view them as people who are victims of either biological disorders, hormonal disorders, and also social pressure based off of misogynist and misandrous expectations of gender roles. And therefore, the medicalization of this mental issue, along with hormones and treatment, is actually brutality and barbarism off of a misconceptualized idea. And because they believe that, they think that indulging in this on a societal level, given the authority of the state or the authority of doctors to medically intervene in order to help people transition, is actually a unfounded, immoral, borderline criminal action that is brutalizing human beings for whom they have empathy. Now, the truth is that when they deal with trans activists, they don't seem to have much empathy. As a matter of fact, they start calling them some pretty horrific things pretty aggressively. However, this is the line of argumentation. So in this scenario, like, you just have people saying, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with the state doing this. And I think that it's evil and vile. That is not akin to a perfect plan to kill you. That is contesting your worldview. And so you might be interfering with somebody's happiness by saying that, but you're still speaking out of your conscience based off of a really complex and weird and fucked up topic that you're passionate about. So should the state have the ability to intervene on you if you're a TERF? And I think the answer should be fundamentally absolutely the fuck not. Now, whether or not people want to socialize with you, invite you to parties, give you a job in which you insist on publicly being turfy, whether or not they want you to be a social media manager or some shit. I think all of that can be argued out in private society about who's going to employ who and who's going to socialize with who. But I don't think the state should have any fucking role in people objecting to things as a matter of conscience. Same thing with religious people, by the way. If a Muslim person, in San Bernardino, right, there was the San Bernardino massacre where a Muslim employee felt like he was being compelled to go to a Christmas party. So instead of going to the Christmas party, he showed up and just murdered 20 of his coworkers, which is pretty fucked up. But if the state was to say, well, this enterprise is majority Christian and you're a Muslim employee at their beck and whim, therefore you have to attend the Christmas party, I don't think they should have any authority or ability to do that. I don't think the corporation should have any ability to compel them, and I don't think that the state should have any ability to compel them. Now, whether or not they want to work together in the future, that's a different question. So, yeah. So I feel... only AMR Bill says that is a poor hypothetical, in my opinion. The truth is that, like, when you do aggressive, hyperbolic, logical extensions, oftentimes the analogies can be a little bit clunky, but this is just, for me, why it doesn't seem to work. Also, the medical field trying to suck all the money they can. I mean, that's the medical world. They like surgeries, and they like new treatments, and they like to explore, and they like to treat people, and they like to study it, and they like to do this, and they like to do that. So yeah, I don't know if like profit is the sole motivation here, but I do agree that in an attempt to innovate, medicine can sometimes be aggressive down directions that aren't necessarily fruitful. Lobotomies are a key example of that if you're looking for a historical example. Isaiah Evans says, wait, I'm a libtard and I don't get it. It quite literally is gender dysphoria. TERFs are a little more radical than that, lol. Well, Isaiah Evans, would you say that TERFs are advocating for violence against transgender people? I've swam in some turfy circles, and I haven't really seen specifically the advocation for violence. Vulcan Blackfire says, speaking of my wife, I asked for trad cred a while back for marrying my girlfriend. Since then, we bought our first house, and I just got the news Thursday that we're pregnant. Yay! I'd appreciate you giving this socialist credit for achieving the American dream. I know it's impossible for most. Vulcan Blackfire, congratulations. Sincerely. You are living the dream. Congratulations. Developer says, I don't know why people care so much about religious parties. Just listen to their bullshit and smile. That is diplomacy. I mean, I agree with you there. I agree with you. I've been to many functions that I do not share the beliefs of the hosts, and I just go there and I go, yes, good for you guys.
You said that if one man was giving orders to other people to go and kill me, that you could take action against that man. If there is a person that is advocating for a political system that would have you excised from your country by force, by state force, how is that different?
How is it not different?
Well, I don't think it's different because both people are advocating for an outcome that's going to result in violence being used against you.
Okay, I'm going to answer this question. Because the likelihood of them achieving that outcome inside the United States of America is likely 0 or nil. And as a result, their advocacy basically doesn't mean shit. And as long as they're not explicitly calling for violence, then we have deemed that freedom of conscience and freedom of expression is more important than your right to personal social safety. And so as a result, you have to tolerate them saying bigoted and fucked up shit, especially if they don't have any realistic opportunity of achieving their goals or achieving their power.
Well, the question is, who's the sovereign? And if you want to look at the outcome is not in your favor, because Richard Spencer is never going to bring in society that will end up exercising.
Sargon and I are of one mind on this.
Whatever it is, whatever.
Well, that would be the goal of Richard Spencer's society.
It doesn't matter what his goal is. He can't do it. His goal could be to fly to the moon. He still can't do it.
But
in a liberal democracy, he's being outvoted by a shitload.
You don't necessarily know that, especially with the state of the world as it's in today, right? You don't necessarily know that, right?
I see no reason.
I mean, we kind of do.
Okay, how about the fact that so many governments in the world are starting to tilt a little bit more right, or the fact that we have somebody in the United States White House right now that is arguably like very fucking weird and pushes in those directions? Like, what do you mean?
I would say then.
Oh man, listen, my thing, like I get it that people are naturally right wing and they're going to push for their shit. I would say that the right wing shift is almost a direct reaction to how fucking crazy the lefties have gotten. That's a personal opinion of mine. No, but their overall rhetoric definitely contributes to an overwhelming majority of anti-trans sentiment and violence. Obviously, they should be able to say whatever, but it's 100% harmful. Yeah, it's not a question of harmful, right? But like, motherfuckers hurt my feelings all the goddamn time. Nick, too bad for you, was making fun of my stream numbers. My feelings are hurt about that. Should I be able to call the fucking cops in order to fuck them over? I mean, maybe. You're talking me into it. Let's do it.
the most sensible thing to do is not to try and inflame those passions.
I'm not asking you what is sensible. I'm asking you for moral justification.
Okay. The goal of my society is to get counterpoints to say my name correctly. Only A, Mr. Bill. But I am not going to make that happen by force. Well, only A, Mr. Bill. Thank you for the comment, and I will try to say your name correctly in the future.
That's what I'm asking
Of
you.
what?
Of whether or not you
Of
could
what?
enact violence against these types of people. I'll use another real example.
I think only if there's a real and present threat to your person that can be justified. And I think that what you're suggesting.
This is like the
doesn't
foundation
create a
of
real
liberal
present.
society.
That's awesome. So you just agreed to getting rid of hate speech because people that argue about hate speech say that there are types of hate speech that create clear and present threats to the existence of some groups of people. That's what a lot of people would say hate speech is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if that's how they define it.
Okay, so let's say, for instance, you are somebody who is living in the United States because your parents brought you over when you were really young, okay? And you filed under a program here called the delayed, I don't remember what it's called, but whatever DACA stands for, citizenship. You filed for that, and now you're under that. And let's say there are a bunch of people in the streets that are saying, fuck you, you need to get shipped out of the country and go home using state force, right? Now, if I would have asked you 10 years ago, or no, 5, I don't remember when DACA went into place. But if I would have asked you, like, do you have a right? Do you have the moral justification to be violent against those people? And you'd say, well, no, because nothing's going to happen. And now Trump is in the White House, and we're looking at DACA possibly being destroyed. Do you think that those people have moral justification to act against those types of people?
No.
Electorally, dude, this is the shit that fucking pisses me off. And I'm not saying that Destiny is like taking like a pure position here. I'm inferring, and maybe I'm arguing against something that's just popping into my fucking head. But the whole reason why we have governments and the whole reason why we have citizenship is I was born, or I am indoctrinated, or I am a part of the United States of America. And as a result, I have citizenship. I have rights and responsibilities and freedoms and liberties that are in line with this government. And this government, in turn, is promising that it is going to take care of certain rights and responsibilities and freedoms and liberties and all that kind of bullshit, right? And so what's happening is there's a social contract that I am participating in which there are systems through which we take care of things like immigration, security, geopolitical force, commerce, international trade, tariffs, all that kind of shit. And so in a democratic republic, you as a citizen have the right and the ability to participate in the electoral or representative system in order to change the legislation in order to get it to where you want to go. The problem with DACA was that it was instituted, as far as I remember, by executive fiat. It was an executive order, and it was a deprioritization of kids who were born in the not born in the United States, because that would make them citizens. They weren't born in the United States, but they were brought in as children, and they have largely participated in American society, and they got in it, and they're either getting an education or have gotten an education, or they're serving in the military, or they're going to be serving in some kind of professional employment, and they don't have felonies, and they've taken their education relatively seriously. So it's not a law, it's a deprioritization of their deportation. And on top of that, that DACA recipient is still technically the citizen of another country. Mexico, Nicaragua, El Salvador, whatever. And so those countries owe their citizens a reciprocal social contract that many of those countries are failing. And so what needs to happen is the citizens of those countries need to hold their government accountable such that the governments actually start honoring the social contracts that are enumerated in their constitutions and their charters and their representation and their business, their parliaments and all that kind of bullshit. Or they need to try to immigrate to another country. But another country is not beholden to the safety, security, and well-being of non-citizens. It can choose to do so out of a valuing of the general human experience and human life, but it is not beholden to them. And what I fucking hate about progressives is they act like Western civic values and Western civic privileges are the right of every human being on the fucking planet, when that is not a sustainable fucking model at all. God damn it, that shit fucking pisses me off. Death by Chip says, that's why I'm a centrist. Everyone loves us. Yeah, I'm really feeling the love. Only a Mr. Bill says, at Parallax, if the definition of righty or lefty was based on who you are going to vote for as president, would you then agree you are a lefty? Only a Mr. Bill. I wonder if you're kind of newer, because like in our space, Twitch and YouTube politics, leftist is socialist and communist. Lefty are Democrats, liberals, socialists, and communists. And then Biden, I'm probably voting for Biden, just to be honest, is seen as the South Park episode where you have to choose between a douche and a turd. That's kind of what it is. You have to pinch your nose and you have to make a choice. A lot of people are pinching their noses and they're choosing to vote for Trump, and God bless them, because that's where they think the country needs to go. For me, I'm pinching my nose and I'm probably voting for Biden, because I think that geopolitically, from an international order standpoint, he's less likely to absolutely destroy the global order. Now, some people want to destroy the global order, but not me so much. Parallax says, yo, Connor has the back knot remover thing I can never find online. Where do you get that? I mean, I literally go to Amazon, type in Theracane. I'm literally going to go to Google right now and just make sure that I'm not full of shit. THERACANE, Theracane. There it is. There's Amazon. I'll link you the one that I have. People are going to think that you're going to stick it up your ass, but as long as you clarify with them that you're not sticking it up your ass. There's an Amazon link, or you can type in THERACANE into Google and find some Amazon. And this one's the black one. That's fairly large. Don't stick it up your ass. Xroxfist says, I'm a left-leaning progressive, leaning centrist, but Bill probably believes I'm a far lefty. I mean, yeah, and to be honest, in American electoral politics, you probably are. But in online politics, you're probably a centrist. Parallax says, I'm not very progressive, but I lean left on social issues, lean right on the economy, and hate almost all of you. True. Welcome to centrism. Very based. iCowrich says, leftists were protesting outside of the DNC in 2016, and centrists were inside the building. True, King. True. Xrox no, I would say you are a normal lefty with a strong case of TDS. Aw, dang it. Well, all right. I got a little bit of TDS myself. Freedom Do says, are you a sim? I don't know if you mean simulation or simp. I am not a simp. I'm not a sucker who idolizes mediocre poo nanny. And I am not a sim. I am not a simulation. I am a human being. Isaiah Evans says he's definitely putting it into his fuck you. Parallax says, at Counterpoints ordered, no cap, already ordered. Thank you. 07. I hope your back does well. All right, let's see if we can wrap this show up. It's 1:29. We got 13 minutes left of this bad boy.
Because the people themselves are not, like, deporting an illegal alien is not the same as visiting violence upon the person unjustifiably.
Oh, no, yes, it is. It is absolutely.
I don't agree.
You do agree. You do agree. You're being a contrarian. So you're telling me that you don't think it is a violent...
I think we have the right, in fact, Mary, the obligation to deport illegal aliens because they're criminals.
What happened to free association Sargon? Wait, what?
I agree with
Hold on, dude. This actually pisses me off. If I was Sargon, I would borderline get mad. I have a lot of libertarian sympathies, and free association is one of them, but I'm still a statist and a nationalist. I still think that there's there needs to be a government and there needs to be a state, and the state needs to be responsible to the citizens, not to every single fucking person on the goddamn planet. If anything, I'm furious that fucking libertarians have made libertarianism synonymous with fucking ANCAP shit, because straight up, I probably would be a libertarian if there was a libertarian statist organization, but the truth is that they're not, and they argue incessantly about everything all the fucking time and are therefore politically irrelevant. So frustrating, like unbelievably frustrating that there isn't like a statist libertarian caucus, and the Republicans are the closest that you're going to get to it, which is frustrating because they also suck. God damn it, everything sucks. Free
association, but I also agree that we should be a nation of laws. You have to understand that principles all contradict each other at some point.
No, they don't. Wait,
Of
hold
course
on.
they do.
Wait.
Come
Is that what you
on.
believe? Wait, if you would have said that at the beginning, it would have made this conversation so much more simple.
You're
So
never
you
going
think
to
that
find a philosopher who disagrees with that.
you think that all principles, absolutely. Of course. Why do you think people waste so much time on
not
boring
all
shit like
principles.
epistemology? Fucking Christ. So you're telling me that all principles are contradictory at some point? Like,
Probably. I think that you take anything.
All rules have exceptions.
okay, so what an actual philosopher would tell you is that any contradiction in a moral system will lead to something called the principle of explosion, where by contradiction, your entire system becomes pointless. If you actually review conflicting and violating principles. So no, this idea that like everybody knows that.
No, hang on, right?
Yeah, that's unbelievably fucking stupid too. So I'm not saying Destiny's incorrect. He probably is correct. But if the principle of explosion is that you can't have any exceptions or any contradictions within a philosophy, then I would just go back to like dialectical materialism, which I think is like a communist thing. But the dialectics, which is who is it? Is it like Hegel? It's one of those German fucking incels, right? But the whole point of it is that like society comes up with ideas and structures and ideologies, and they all bounce off of each other and they create a status quo. And the status quo creates contradictions that need to be addressed. And as a result, society confronts those contradictions and then results in a new status quo. But then that new status quo creates new contradictions, so on and so forth. And so you have like the synthesis. No. You have like the hypothesis and the antithesis, and then you have the synthesis. And so like history kind of does that. And if you look at Socrates and Aristotle, or Plato and Aristotle, if you look at capitalism and communism, if you looked at mixed economy capitalism as an attempt to resolve those differences, oftentimes like government societies and ideologies are attempts to resolve these contradictions. So if you have a philosophy that has contradictions, you should just be able to say like, this is the best way that I think human beings know how to do it right now. However, there are flaws in every human created system. That's like I don't get how this is like, oh, you have a hole, therefore you are defeated. That's fucking crazy. How can you justify supporting Biden after this Banana Republic show trial? I don't like Trump either, but this is third world tin pot dictatorship, Black Sheep K says. So I'll explain it to you just because we only got 15 minutes left and we got like an hour till I'm technically going to go to bed. So I'll explain it to you. To my knowledge, Joe Biden has not participated in the New York trial or the Georgia trial. These are things that have been taken on by the state. New York is an overwhelmingly Democratic state, and Trump made the fatal mistake of choosing that as his place of residence for decades while it progressively became more and more insane. I have read up on this, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, I invite you to listen. The two things that they got him on is they got him on the falsification of business records. My problem with this statute is that it says in an attempt to defraud. That is my main beef with the way that New York has interpreted this statute. Stormy Daniels wasn't defrauded. She was paid. Michael Cohen wasn't defrauded. He was the payee and reimbursed. Donald Trump wasn't defrauded because he was the issuer of the payment. So therefore, I can't think of any party that was defrauded in that statute. Now, that being said, you can make some kind of like weird appeal to like the public good or some shit, which is, I'm pretty sure that's what like New Yorkers would do, or the New York state attorney and the state did. I don't believe in that shit, but it's fucking New York, you know, like you're basically dealing with like a communist fucking shitscape anyway, so whatever. Yeah, it wasn't a fraud trial, Ica Rich. That's not what I'm saying. The one statute is falsification of business records, and a subcomponent, a word of that statute, is in order to defraud. And I don't think anybody was defrauded. So, anyways, moving on to the other statute. This one is fairly interesting because it is worded so poorly. It was, you cannot commit a crime in order to promote or malign somebody during an election. It is so vague. It is such a fucking catch-all. And on one hand, I think it's like a decent statute that it is so vague, because then if somebody does commit a crime that you couldn't have conceived of, but they do it in the furtherance of election, then you can kind of go after them. But I do think that it's so vague that it's fucking weird that they are using it in order to apply for a federal election. And so if I was an attorney for Donald Trump, and I'm sure they did this, by the way, I would appeal that, like, it's a federal election. So why is the state enforcing a statute in order to allegedly go after a federal election? That seems fucking weird. It seems like the Fed should be dealing with it. But through, people have called this like a Frankenstein trial. Through the combination of the falsification of a business record, which allegedly was proven in court, and in order to promote somebody during an election, which does not have in its statute language that it has to be federal or state, they were able to get a conviction by 12 people in a jury of his peers. So, all things considered, when you're talking about a banana republic, you have to bear in mind that in a banana republic or a Central American republic that was overthrown, what happened was the rival government officials weren't given a trial in which they were found guilty but wouldn't serve jail time, and they would have to pay a penalty, and they would get like a felony name designation, and then they would be free to do whatever the fuck they would want to do. That's not a banana republic. A banana republic, they just watch that. They literally go to the trial. They convict him within 20 minutes. They march him out back. They shoot him and his entire family, and they throw him in a shallow ditch. So for me, the trial is the election trial in New York, or the hush money. That's what they call it. The hush money trial in New York is probably the weakest and weirdest case that Trump has gotten so far. And if you wanted to say that they were politically motivated, I would probably just grant it to you. But this is far from some kind of indication that the Republic is collapsed. That is fucking cope. Thinking that the Republic is collapsed because Donald Trump got slapped a little in New York is not accurate to reality. Anyways, sorry for that rant, but you asked an interesting question. Xroxfist says, shockingly, it went through a grand jury and a jury, and he was found guilty. Michael Cohen was also found guilty for the crime that turned the business fraud into a felony. Right. So, who is it? Michael Cohen, he was a co-conspirator because he created the fraudulent business transactions. So, again, not a banana republic. It's dumb. I don't think I particularly like the statutes. I think it's pretty weak, but it's not the end of the republic. Bud123 says, isn't the falsification of business records normally a misdemeanor? It is. The reason why they were able to charge it, as a matter of fact, the statute of limitations was over, is because if you falsify a business record in order to commit another crime, it becomes a felony. And as a result, they were able to charge it. And what they used is that obscure election New York law. It's statute 17-152, in order to say that by falsifying a business record in order to pay off Stormy Daniels, by paying Michael Cohen but not disclosing that it was related to an NDA specifically, and it was election related, therefore they committed another crime, which was promoting Donald Trump in the election. Therefore, it became a felony. It's pretty weak. Overall, I think it's pretty weak. But again, I've said it 5 times. It's not the collapse of the Republic. Aren't they going for the maximum jail sentence? No. As a matter of fact, I've heard the opposite. I've heard that the judge has said repeatedly that he's not looking for incarceration, since it's like Trump's first criminal offense. And on top of that, the 34 counts, they're like 4 years each, but they're all related to the same crime. So they would be related concurrently. And also the appeals process will not be wrapped up by the time of the nomination. So Trump can campaign normally from now until the Republican nomination, basically. Xrox says, which is why his testimony couldn't even convict Trump. It could only be used to corroborate other testimony evidence. So if Cohen were the only evidence, it would have been immediately thrown out. Yeah. Like I trust, I don't trust a jury of my peers, because I think, no offense to, all of you are beautiful. The 50 people hanging out with us cross-platform right now, you are all beautiful souls who have decided to spend your evening with me, and I greatly appreciate that. But I think the average jury of peers is fucking retarded. Now, that being said, 12 retards in a room can add up to one almost functional human being. So I trust one almost functional human being to make a semi-educated decision on the topic, particularly after reviewing all the evidence for weeks. Ba, 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 ba. The institutions are too strong. Supreme Court for the U.S. to be a banana republic. The Supreme Court kept Trump on the ballot 9-0 when states tried to remove him. Yeah, that's the balance of power in a republic. I'm really proud of the United States for the past decade for surviving what I think have been semi-existential constitutional crises for the past decade, and I think it's done a decent job of surviving the test of time. So I'm praying that our republic continues to survive. A republic if we can keep it. That's what Benjamin Franklin said. Louis Salazar says, when will Arch have another debate with someone? I don't know. I could DM him. We were still friendly after that conversation that we had. Ginger Miss Prime says, half the country now don't trust the objective justice system now, and when this happens to a Dem and a deep red state, the other half of the country will lose trust if the republic is over. Ginger Miss Prime, you say that, but I think as a centrist, if Hunter Biden goes to jail at all, I would be ecstatic. If Trump got hit with a felony and didn't serve any jail time, but he just kind of got a black eye during an election and then he lost, but then Hunter Biden ended up doing jail time for cocaine possession or the gun charge or the tax stuff, I would be ecstatic. I would be like, oh shit, system's working. This is actually super based. So I would be ecstatic if both of them got fucked, to be honest. Remy LeBeau says, as an Australian with no skin in the game, it is actually fascinating watching the entire Trump saga. I hope you cover it more. We might. So to be honest, this is part of the problem. I appreciate you. We got 53 people cross platform. We got 10 minutes, 15 minutes left in the debate. I promise you we'll get back to the content. But I typically want to be live between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. Eastern, but I have 2 children. I might have a third child at some point. I have a wife who allegedly loves me, and I love her. And I also have a thriving Warhammer channel for which I have to design a 3D printed skeleton and a mold with which to put in, silicone. That way I can make a room temperature stable ballistic dummy that I can blow up with explosive rounds. So while Nick 2 Dicks for You, or whatever the fuck his name was shit talking my metrics, the truth is I'm a very busy man. So while I wish that there was 1,500 of you instead of 50, I'm still very thankful to the 50 people who chose to spend their evening with me. Thank you kindly for being here. Black Sheep says they changed the statute of limitations and staked misdemeanor charges to somehow make a felony. Yeah, I just explained that. They attached it to statute 17-152, which is the committing a crime in order to promote an election. That's how they got it to be a felony. And the statute that they charge for the falsification of business records only becomes a felony if it's attached to another criminal statute. So, if this trial was in rural Illinois, purple, would he have been convicted? That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. I want them to get Menendez. Me too. His peers? Yeah, no offense. I think Donald Trump, despite being a billionaire, I think his peers are people at Dairy Queen. Bud123, I think, and if you like Dairy Queen, I'm sorry if I insulted you. Bud123, I think the real problem would be some partisan presidential packing the Supreme Court with his cronies. Then it would be close to the end of the republic, but FDR tried to do it and it did not wreck it. Yeah, Bud123, that is my concern because there are a lot of Democrats who want Biden to do that, and that does scare me a little bit. You're the one coping? I don't think I said the word cope. I feel like I had a fairly polite explanation of the entire situation. So I hope you're talking to somebody else and not me. All right, let's continue with the content.
Yes, that's exactly what happens. It's called dilemma, and you end up having to change your worldview. Your moral framework changes. Lemon is the best example that I know of this to explain it.
Okay, let's back up. Okay, to DACA. So let's say right now you exist in a state and you have.
No, what you're saying is your moral framework doesn't change, and that's not true. It changes all the time.
No, I never said my moral framework didn't change. Changing your moral framework versus having it be contradictory are 2 totally different things. You can have one consistent moral framework and then change to another consistent moral framework. That doesn't mean either are contradictory.
I think all moral frameworks are eventually contradictory. I can't think of any that isn't contradictory in some way.
Okay.
But these contradictions normally manifest themselves in dilemmas, like specifically moral dilemmas, which as you accurately said, ought. And the resolution of a moral dilemma, like a moral dilemma, go away just because you ignore it. It goes away once you resolve it, and you have to make a decision. And that decision itself,
there is nothing wrong with what Sargon is saying right now.
Worldview. So.
Okay, So going back to the DACA people.
Yeah, sorry, real quick. Destiny talks to people like they're fucking assholes or whatever. There's nothing wrong with what Sargon just said. Nothing wrong with it at all.
Let's say that somebody exists in the country, they file with the government,
Yep.
they seem to be doing okay, and now somebody removes the ability for them to do that, right? And and now under threat of state sanctioned force, right? So ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, whatever, or FBI, whatever, right, will come and actually enact violence against you. Maybe not like kill you, beat you up, but forcibly remove you from a country and kick you out. Why do these people not have moral justification for violence against groups of people that are advocating for this?
Because the group of people who are advocating for it aren't advocating for anything illegal or even immoral. The
Wait, hold
immoral
on, wait.
thing that is done is being in someone else's country illegally.
Okay. So are you arguing, because I'm trying to get a moral answer from you and you keep appealing to the law. So are you saying that like whatever
No, I'm saying like I think it's immoral to illegally enter someone's country and reside there.
what if you're 3?
Then the parent carries the burden of, don't they?
Okay, then if you try to get rid of DACA, you're kicking out the kid that grew up here. Do you think that's moral?
Sorry, say that again, sorry.
So DACA is children that were brought over illegally through no means, through no fault of their own, were brought over and then were raised in the United States, blah, blah, blah. These are the people that are going to be kicked out, right? So you think that it's justifiable to kick them out?
Well, I mean, it is justifiable, but I probably wouldn't myself.
Okay, do you think that those people
Centrist Sargon, centrist Sargon.
have a right to feel like they have moral? Do those people have moral justification for enacting violence against people that are trying to kick them out of where they were born or where they were grew up at? You don't. Why not?
No, because I think we do have a moral obligation to follow.
Okay, so now you're going to say the argument is that the laws
The
are what
argument is
dictate
not
the
the law
morality.
that's the source of morality.
Wait, but that's exactly what you just said.
No, it's not.
No. Destiny's being a fucking tool. I've explained it once, I'll explain it again. This was put in by executive fiat. In a democratic republic, you're supposed to pass things through legislation. If a president rescinds an executive order, that is not some indictment of the entire system besides the fact, well, the only indictment it does is it shows that we've collectivized way too much power in the executive branch. However, as a DACA recipient, if the laws change and you are being deported to your country of origin, that doesn't fucking matter. That doesn't mean that you get to go murder your fucking citizens, which, by the way, I think that Destiny, not recent now, but recent to this debate, basically said that he thought it was justifiable for DACA recipients to use violence against people who were trying to pass aggressive anti-immigration law that would result in the stripping of DACA. That he would see it as morally justifiable. I think that you could argue that it's morally justifiable from their lens, but I think from the country's perspective, if you broke the law, you were basically grandfathered in order for some like moral higher power to be served. And then we decided to no longer serve that moral higher power. If those people start beating up your citizens, your duty is to your citizens, not to the people for whom you establish grace. So I get that there might not be like there might even be like a DACA recipient who is technically better than your citizen, but the whole contract is between a citizen and their government. Motherfuckers.
No, I knew you were going to say that, and it's not.
Well, because that's what you're appealing to the law for your sense of moral justification.
No, I didn't say the law. I didn't say the laws are.
You said we have a moral obligation to follow the law, didn't you?
Yeah, but the laws themselves might not be moral.
So you're
if
saying
they're not moral, then we have a moral obligation to change the laws.
Okay, so you're saying we have a moral obligation to follow laws.
No, Gingermus Prime. It's funny how he thinks the state creates all rights, and when the state kicks you out, you have the right to fight back against the state. Damn. Now, I'm sure that he would try to articulate the difference between like moral justification and a right, as articulated by like enumerated within a state or a constitution or whatever. He would view it as like a state social conception. But I do think that that is an interesting rhetorical waffling that a smarter debater would have caught and made him rectify.
But laws themselves might not be moral.
Yes.
So what if somebody thinks that a law isn't moral, but somebody else is enforcing that immoral law upon them? like say during the civil rights era in the United States, do you think that that person is acting immorally to try to
Gingerma says nah, but he's literally doing it right now. He's talking about how there can be immoral laws. So he didn't get caught too flat-footed.
like not have that law be enforced upon them?
No, not necessarily immorally in that regard, but that doesn't change that there is an obligation to follow the laws. But like I said, I'm not saying that the laws are the source of morality.
Okay, so let's
But
say
the
that
thing
you
is,
have a slave. Let's say
hang on, no, hang on, right? We can't just rush on from this because the thing is, you've really got to put it in sort of Kantian sort of conception. Like what we do have to agree that it
This
is
is why I don't read
morally correct to follow the laws.
I don't
Kant.
agree. I don't necessarily agree with that. No, not at all.
Well then, what kind of world do you end up in if you don't agree to that?
Well, I have a moral system where I determine what I think is good or bad based on what
Yeah.
aligns with my morals, not based on what the law says.
Yeah.
What kind of world do you
But
live in?
if my moral system says I should kill you, you're an infidel, and the law says I shouldn't, do I have a moral obligation to follow the law?
No, I don't think anyone has a moral obligation to
Then
follow
I
the
should.
law.
Then you think it's moral for me to kill you because you're an infidel?
Under your system, it might be, sure.
Okay.
I mean, what do you disagree that people think that way? Do you? I mean, we all. I'm
No,
sure
I
you know
don't
what
disagree
ISIS.
that people
I'm
think
sure
that
you
way,
shit
but
on
I
fucking
think that-
Muslims like for half your fucking career, so you should know that people think that this shit is
Did
moral.
I?
Yeah, I mean, you should know that people
I
think.
agree that there are. I agree there are people who think this shit is moral,
Okay,
but I also think that they're not moral people.
okay. So all of us
Uh,
can probably agree.
this is one of the failings. I think this is one of our failings as human beings. We think that because somebody has a different ideological system than us, that they are immoral, and I agree to a certain extent. So for instance, like I think communists, the people who believe in a moneyless, stateless, classless society, and who are specifically Marxist-Leninists, so they think that they can achieve that through like a vanguard party. I think that even though they think that they are achieving a moral end by trying to bring their reality into existence, they are so deluded and evil that they are deserving of like state violence, social censure, and if the state is unwilling to do violence and they're about to seize power, extrajudicial and extra systemic violence. I really do believe that. Like I think communists, particularly vanguard Leninists, are so fucking evil that no matter how ideologically pure they are, they're just fucking dangerous. And I do believe the same things about jihadists. But I think the thing that you have to realize, especially once you interact with enough ideological tribes, is that almost every single ideological tribe has a reason for why they do what they do, and they almost all see themselves as the good guys. I think even the Nazis, to a certain extent, probably did see themselves as the good guys because they worked themselves up into a frenzy to believe that Jews were a unique evil in the world. And so as a result, I think that they need to, you have to understand that oftentimes your enemies they think they're the good guys. So you should try not to kill them as much as possible. You should convert them to your ideology. You should argue with them. You should debate them. You should do all that kind of stuff. And really, like, violence should be the last step. And there should be like an existential consequence. Like, I don't think that you should go out and just kill Marxist Leninist communists who live in the United States because they're not even close to achieving power. If Marxist Leninists were close to achieving power in the United States, then I think it should come down to the state cracking down on them or other shenanigans. Oh, yeah. All right. Sorry. Let's continue.
Think. Could be wrong, but all of us can probably agree that if somebody is 3 years old and they're brought to another country and raised there, it's probably not their fault that it happened. I think most of us can agree with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if most of us can agree with that, if we're not assigning blame to the person, usually, philosophically, we require agency in order to punish somebody. If they can't make the choice, we're not going to punish them for it. This is why things like entrapment are real, right? So if somebody is trying to punish a child who's now grown up under DACA and kick them out of the country as a result of that, why doesn't that person have a moral justification to enact violence against those types of people?
Because I don't think that gives you license to be able to hurt someone.
But they're trying to hurt you.
Just because, they're not trying to hurt you.
They're trying to get you kicked out of your country.
Yeah, so this is what's frustrating to me too. So there's this meme that I see every so often, and I always want to share it. And it's like, it's a brown guy, and he's got a Mexican flag, and he's like, "Viva Mexico! I love Mexico! Mexico numero uno!" Da, da, da. And then it's a it's a border patrol agent and he's grabbing him by the shoulders and he's dragging him away. And he's like, okay, buddy, we're going to deport you back to Mexico. And the guy's like, no, you're ruining my life. And I think that Destiny and other progressives and liberals or whatever, they really do see like other countries as a death sentence or like such a fucking shithole that you might as well kill yourself. It's so funny because on one hand, I'm not saying this specifically for Destiny, but like, Trump got in trouble for calling Haiti a shithole. On one hand, they don't want you to deport anybody to their country of origin because it's such a decrepit, corrupt, evil, disgusting society that anybody who goes there is on the verge of death. But then also you can't call it a fucking shithole because, culture is vibrant and beautiful and you don't know what you're talking about and this, that, the other. And aren't you like an ignorant savage for even implying that their country of origin is not as good as the United States of America? It's one of those interesting dichotomies that I think gets more contradictory the more you think about it. So, so like the fact that a DACA, like a first generation person who comes here, and their parents were here with them, and they're Mexican, so presumably they speak Spanish. And then they've lived here together to the point that they've gone through school. Now, maybe they only learned English, but I think that's partly problematic on their family for not teaching them their own original language. And then pretending that they just have like no family, no community, no extended relations in their country of origin. That's fucking crazy. It's fucking crazy. Millions upon millions upon millions, if not billions of people live outside the United States. And while there is increased crime, increased drug trafficking, increased problems, increased sex trafficking, etc., not every single fucking place is like a death sentence. And so that's where this exaggeration of harm to the DACA people is reading a little hollow for me personally. Anyways, Sturmovich, good to see you, even though you're endlessly talking shit. Says, although he didn't say anything about violence, not even the good man of Auschwitz believe that. Although he didn't say anything about violence. I'm not tracking, but, catch me up if you can. The whole Holocaust was essentially just an exaggerated form of fear-mongering and hate-mongering against a group of people. I still agree that as our nation's top diplomat, it shouldn't really be said. Okay. How can people satisfy their Call of Duty fantasies if they can't resort to violence? Sounds boring. True, but then you're on the wrong stream. You should be watching Tim Pool, and he will jerk you off endlessly about how the Civil War is imminent and how the New York case is a sign that we're in a banana republic, and you need to go buy your AR-15 and ammo, and you need to buy your food, and you need to get into your nuclear fallout shelter, and you need to do this, that, the other. You might just be on the wrong stream. So if you want to indulge in Call of Duty LARP fucking fantasies, sorry, I'm just going to be mean to Tim Pool because that dude fucking pisses me off to no end. While never having served in law enforcement, never having fucking been in the military, hanging out in a compound, smoking weed and skateboarding all fucking day, and then going onto Twitter in order to piss yourself off so you can get worked up enough for your own fucking podcast. Like, if you want to go to that guy for your world perspective, you are fucking welcome to, but I think that you are fucking losing your goddamn mind along with him. Oh, anyways. I like how Rich says, arguably, pre-World War II ways of thinking is how we got Warhammer 40k. We're cosplaying the old world order. True, but fuck the Eldar, fuck Tyranids, fuck orcs, not with your penis, but like with guns, kill them. And then I kind of like Necrons. Now, I like orcs too, but they're just a plague on the universe, which is inarguable. But anyways, speaking of which, the VRF14 is on sale at PSA, debating on it or a resin printer. Yeah, Mammoth Apostle, up to you. All I'm saying is that I have the 3D files if you want to convert it into a bolter, and it would be a substantive investment, but you can get a FDM Anycubic Viper for $200 refurbished on eBay. So if you want to make a bolter, you can make a bolter. Now, if you want to get a resin printer and you're more of a tabletop gamer, then do that. You can really only go to the range, like, I don't know about you, but I'm still like a wagey. You can really only go to the range like once a month and not blow your grocery budget on ammo. So, I want you to get the bolter, but I also understand if you go in a different direction. I know that's a terrible sales pitch, but, I am going to put the ball in your court so I don't feel morally responsible for it. But don't point a bolter at your head. All right, sorry. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean hurting you. Right? That
Okay, I
means-
can't. We have to go. I cannot seriously. I can't take that statement seriously. Really?
What are you talking
Thank you,
about?
Mammoth. Appreciate it.
Removing somebody from the country they've lived their whole lives and kicking them out into a foreign country. You don't think that's a type of harm?
It depends how we're defining harm, doesn't it? Right, but I don't
By
agree it's a
any
form of
Not
violence.
physical
reasonable
harm.
And I don't.
Okay, so let's
No,
say right now. Let's say I would have fly you. Let's say right.
Look, I'm not saying.
No,
I'm
we
not
have to
saying
agree
it's
on this statement.
It's not authoritarian.
No. It's not authoritarian. None of this has anything to do with authoritarianism. Okay, let's say that I go to your house and I take you out of the house using the UK, whatever the Britbonger police are. Okay, take you out of your house and I fly you to America and I say, hey, by the way, you're living here for the rest of your fucking life. I haven't caused a measurable harm to you.
But if I had no right to live in the United Kingdom,
There's actually a joke here where it's like, actually, you've significantly improved my life. Thank you.
right, and I was a US citizen and I was living in the UK illegally, then the
Mhm.
state has the rights, and in fact, you could argue the duty to do that.
Okay, so
Now,
if you're
the harm done to me, the harm done to me is, I mean,
Is
you could
because
say
of
social
previous
harm, maybe, but
illegal
there's no way
behavior.
we can start having the state police that. You could say there was maybe emotional harm, but again, I don't see what the state can really do. I mean, that you start creating license for massive extensions of state overreach, which is why we usually relegate it to physical harm, as in violence done to you. That's not violence. It might suck for you, yeah, but sometimes things happen that suck, man.
True.
I don't know what the whole point. So obviously, sometimes things
Sargon
happen that
W.
suck.
I don't necessarily think the avoidance of harm is the greatest moral good anyway.
True.
Wait, hold on. Oh my god, hold on. Because we just had like a million things. Okay, so firstly, originally we agreed that
That's a hedonist perspective. A hedonist perspective is the maximization of pleasure and the minimization of harm. And by the way, Destiny, the way that he articulates how he deals in his personal life, nihilist hedonist, like all day, every day. Like that's just the way he articulates himself. So I'm not trying to impugn him. That is not the philosophy that I want. That's not the philosophy that I want for my children. But the way that he articulates the way he lives his life, it's nihilist hedonism all day.
a 2-year-old person probably shouldn't be punished later in life for a decision they didn't make. But now you've walked back on that and you've said, well, hold on, if the law says it, fuck that person, they should be punished.
No,
so
I
which
didn't
one
say
is it?
that.
Okay, wait.
I
So
didn't.
can you clarify there?
Nick, okay, if you shut up, I would. I personally, in my
Hold on, let's be nice. iCow Rich says, I have worked with DACA kids, many of them. Sending them to a country that they don't know is no small thing. I agree that executive orders are inadequate, but these are culturally Americans that are being dispossessed. Yes, I know I'm a libcuck. Okay. iCow Rich. I do not want DACA kids, particularly the ones who are doing well in their education and who have aspirations, local aspirations, joining the military, getting a job, going to college, whatever. I do not want them to be deported. I think it's a waste of time. I think it's a waste of resources. That being said, I think that we all know that there is a problem in Central America, largely caused by corruption, drug cartels, human trafficking, all that kind of stuff. And so we really have two options. We either do a fortress arc in which we shut down our southern border, we screen our airplanes very heavily, we aggressively deport people who overstay their visas, and therefore we make it a South American and Central American problem that needs to be solved by South and Central Americans. I think a lot of isolationists would prefer that as a policy. I, however, unfortunately, view South and Central Americans as American citizens waiting to get out, meaning that I think that we have one of the best civic and security systems on the fucking planet. And I think if we came together as a continent, that could be fantastic for all involved. I jokingly talk about the greater United States of America, in which we annex all the way down to the Panama Canal. However, if there was an earnest attempt by Mexicans, people from Belize, people from Nicaragua and El Salvador, and people from Panama and whatever other fucking countries I missed, if there was an earnest belief on their part that their lives would be better off joining the United States of America and getting citizenship and becoming states, and then us aiding them with their security and drug issues and them becoming productive workers of our society, I would be 100% for that. 100%. No memes. I would support the greater United States of the Americas. Screaming Sturmovich says, and you will glaze him endlessly as a good person. No, I won't. Now you're just making shit up. And Sturmovich, let's tread carefully with each other, okay? I understand that I frustrated you with some of my perspectives, but I do see you in the Discord, and I do see you being engaged in the Discord. So I don't want to step on your toes unnecessarily. You have. Okay, well, let me articulate my perspective. I think that I prioritize taking care of my kids. That's a huge part of my life. I hope Destiny has a good relationship with Nathan. I wish them the very best. But I would not be prioritizing my personal satisfaction with my relationships and job over proximity to my children. Destiny has made a different choice. I would not make that choice, but I'm also not Destiny. Destiny obviously has had tough relationships with some of his partners. I think that this stems from what we're talking about with philosophical nihilist hedonism, where the purpose of life is to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. I think that the turbulence in those relationships stems from that. I think that there's probably unaddressed trauma in his life from his childhood and from his early adulthood that probably really fucked him up. And I think that shit is probably unaddressed, but he is a friendly professional acquaintance with whom I hope to have a good relationship, but I wouldn't call him a friend, so to speak. Because as a friend, I would tell him all this shit and much more to his face and in person. Particularly if he was soliciting my advice. What I think Destiny has done that is unique and cool and worthy of admiration is he's obviously a powerful rhetorician. He's obviously good at attracting people to himself. And despite my criticisms of his nihilist hedonism, he is willing to put his money where his mouth is. And in Cincinnati, he showed a unique ability, insofar as I can see it in Twitch and YouTube politics, the ability to get 300 young people who are largely isolated out of their houses and together to serve a broader social function. That is worthy of respect. Now, you can criticize the mission. You might not like Biden. You might not like Democrats. You might not like, Destiny in particular. You might think he's slippery, this, that, the other, or whatever. Being able to command the respect and admiration of a few hundred people to the point that they will fly cross country in order to achieve a political goal is worthy of admiration, and it's a high achievement. So, I have my personal criticisms of Destiny, and if he ever wants to hear me say them, I will be happy to articulate them to him. If he doesn't give a fuck about my personal criticisms, that's totally fine. But there are obviously redeeming qualities that he has that I think are worthy. If you don't like him, that's fine. But I think that they are worthy of some level of respect of competence. So that's how I feel about it. I'm a bit to your left on that, but that's reasonable. Okay, cool. Infallible Foul says, if we live by the principle of sometimes life sucks, then couldn't we throw censorship into the same basket? What about mask mandates, lockdowns? I'm not sure if this is totally analogous, but just to kind of try to engage with you on the thing. So censorship. Yeah, if you're encouraging the murder of other human beings, I think you should be censored. Anwar al-Awlaki, I argued for him to get drone striked. He was a United States citizen, and he didn't go through the typical due process in order to be killed by the state. So yeah, that's a form of censorship, and I think that there will be reasonable exceptions that are okay. What about mask mandates? I brought it up earlier. If Ebola was as violent and available as COVID, where everybody was catching it at some point, but then it still had the fatality rate of 60% or 80%, and people were dying by shitting and fucking crying blood out of their ass, then yeah, I think that masks and lockdowns would be warranted in that case. So it's always a balance. Like a lot of libertarians, they don't like hearing that the interests of the collective sometimes trump the interests of the individual, but it's just true. We're a communitarian species. We're not a libertarian species, and we're not a collectivist species. We are communitarian. It's the balance between the individual and the collective, and you have to side one way or the other. So yeah, Giga Chad, yes. We need an alien invasion so we can go full Halo UNA. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I wish we had a. What I want is I want the nation states to stay the same, but I want there to be a federal framework, and the federal framework shouldn't be concerned with the governance of the states. The states should be concerned with their own governance due to size and limitations. However, the United Earth government should be concerned with the security of Earth and should be secure. They should care about colonization. So yeah. RC says, isn't it in Halo called the UNSC? Yeah, but that's like the security wing. So there's like the United Nations of whatever, what he said, the UNA, and the UNSC is the military wing. Capone was rich and had soup kitchens, so he's a good person. No, Capone was a bad person who murdered dozens of people and probably contributed to all sorts of grift and vice in his community. But you can say that Capone was a competent organizational thinker. So you could respect Capone's prowess as a gangster. If you don't have to like him, you can think he's a thieving, lying, murdering scumbag, but you can respect his prowess as a gangster. I think that would make it analogous. iCoward says, I get it, but flying across country to go door knocking is insanely inefficient. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just think that there aren't a lot of people who have ground games. And so I think that's the value of having a few hundred young people who are willing to knock doors. I mean, iCowrich, I'm perfectly all ears to hear what is efficient. Trump tried to steal the election, but he's rich and liked, so good person. I mean, that Sturmovich, you're joking, but I hear that shit all fucking day. All right, sorry. I started ranting a lot. Let's finish the last couple of minutes.
A judgment, think it would be unfair to that person, right? But the question is...
sorry, somebody said something I need to address. Louis Salazar says, what was that virus from the early 2000s? It was like COVID? SARS. And it's actually a cousin of COVID.
What does the person, the bureaucrat or the civil servant in charge think? And what does the law allow?
Wait,
and the
but
law
we're not having a question of what is the law. We both know what the law allows.
Yeah, Isaiah Evans says we hit 40,000 doors, definitely efficient. So, yeah, you have to go with metrics, right? And sorry for interrupting again. Chat's engaged. I'm engaging with chat. So you're just going to have to forgive me if you're listening to this as a VOD. So what I would want to know, there were 300 canvassers. They knocked 40,000 doors. They had 8,000 political conversations with registered voters, and they had like 180 or 200 or whatever registered voters. So what I hear, what I'm sympathetic to with iCow Rich is 200 new voters is not a crazy return on investment to the point that I feel like the election would be changed by that output. However, 8,000 political conversations, if that bumps into like more people actually voting or whatever, I would be curious what the numbers behind that are. And then what I would also be curious about, this is something that I said to President Sunday, because he was criticizing PV as well. I wouldn't just want to take, somebody's word that they could get better results. What I would want to see is another door knocking organization. That way it's apples to apples comparison, who has 300 canvassers, and I want to see the results that they turn back. So if a political organization is capable of getting 300 people on the ground, number one, that's a big logistical feat. And then two, they're able to get more conversations, more doors, more registered voters. I want to know what they're doing differently. Okay. So I'm not going to take it on faith that, this is just not the right way to spend time and energy. iCarrot says, take those same airfare hotel resources and sink them into a local door knocking efforts. I once was a part for a state legislative seat. We flipped that district. So iCarrot, I hear you. and I'm with you and I'm okay with it. I don't think you would get that money because people are there for the parasocial element. And two, I think that door knocking has not been sexy for a while. So I'm not sure if there are large door knocking organizations anymore. I'm curious to hear about it, but I'm not sure if they are. Sorry, let's finish the last 5 minutes. You guys are distracting me. I do love the distractions, but let's finish.
On my personal feeling about it, yeah, I wouldn't send them back. I think it'd be mean.
Okay, I'm not asking you what mean.
I'd give them citizenship.
We're having a moral discussion right now. I'm not asking what would be mean or good or no. I'm sorry.
That's me saying I think it would be immoral to do that.
Okay, so then so you think that the state forcing somebody to leave their country, if that person was there through no fault of their own and had lived their whole life there, that would be an immoral act, correct or no?
Well, it certainly could be.
Okay.
I mean, it depends. It depends on the
so
who the person is, what they're doing, stuff like
this.
Blah blah blah.
If the state is,
but in basic, sure, I could have.
So if the state is positioning itself to enact an immoral form of violence against you, okay, by deporting you forcibly,
I don't agree. Well, I mean, you could. I guess you could call it a form of violence if you want to be extreme about it.
I think that most reasonable people would agree that it would be a form of state-sanctioned violence to show up at your house with a gun and say, "Hey, you are leaving this fucking country forever." Most people would agree that is a form of state-sanctioned violence.
Well, again, that's the same as saying it's a form of state-sanctioned violence for the police to turn up at a murderer's house and do the same. Yes, it is a form of state-sanctioned violence. Yeah, it is. But sometimes state-sanctioned violence is justified.
I agree.
And you could justify deporting an illegal immigrant.
I disagree. But I'm glad because we got
How
there.
How can you not justify deporting an illegal immigrant?
Because we just let's walk again through the same garden. Okay, we just said
I know what you're going to say, but you're ignoring the fact that it is also an immoral thing to be in another country illegally.
But we both agreed that we weren't going to charge somebody with an immoral action that they didn't commit.
Yeah, but that's my personal choice.
That's what we're talking about. Is our personal moral choices here? We're not talking about the law right now. What do you mean?
Well, you seem to be setting objective standards.
No, I'm having a discussion of morality with you. That's all I'm having.
Yeah, I know, but you seem to be trying to set objective moral standards. No. Like, if X, then Y, always.
Yeah, that's how conversations work. Yeah, of course. We're moving from one point to the next.
I think you've missed my point. But look, it's nearly 2 a.m. here, so
I guess
do you feel that we're okay to wrap up, or is there anything you want to say at the end? Or?
Yeah, sure. What are your final closing thoughts?
Well, I thought it was a really interesting conversation. I don't see how we can separate gender from the biological reality it's supposed to describe, and I don't think we should expand the definition of a gender role to include its antonym, but that's just me. I guess you feel that we can?
My only wish was for this conversation, I wish you would have told me why the biological term male is supposed to describe anything. I wish we could have figured that out, but maybe for our next conversation.
Well, for our ability to operate as human social animals, that's why.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, buddy, it was a fun conversation. Have fun.
Yeah, I had a good time, man.
Yep. Bye.
All right. Take it easy.
So one thing that I think Destiny and I've noticed Chud doing really, and I think they do it really well, is that if a conversation is not like productive or heated or whatever, they move on from it. So that they'll spend like 30 minutes to an hour on it. But once it's done, it's done. And I think that's probably the sign of like a stronger streamer who has good instincts for content. And I think that's part of the reason why Chud is so successful. I think he does. I'm not just glazing to glaze. I've seen him grow, and I think it is interesting. So as a matter of fact, if you'll indulge me or rant again, I'll describe it. So Chud started in the Twitch poll scene, same time as me, probably even earlier than me. And he would go on debates, but I think he also did his own stuff. And in his own stuff, he would do like politics reviews, theory, all that kind of stuff. At least this is what I heard. But he seemed to have a taste for drama. And what happened, particularly after he did his face reveal, is he started doing drama content. And with drama content, there's a certain element of predictability. You're going to find something outrageous. It's going to be funny and it's going to be interesting. And it's worth knowing, especially if you're in the Twitch or YouTube politics space, because you might interact with these people or you might be interested in interacting with these people. So knowing that knowing all of their ups and downs and their dramas and their fights and all that kind of stuff is potentially useful information, particularly if you're a creator. And then also it can just be fun. It can be fun to hear somebody, particularly a person with a British accent or English accent, talking shit about people. And if they're talking shit about somebody that you don't like, then it's super fun, like crazy gratifying, awesome, whatever. And so by finding that he enjoyed that niche, what he was able to do was create predictive content. And the predictive content, I think, really follows like probably 2 or 3 uh, formulas that are predictable, which is one, this is probably the main one. He just react Andes to a drama. He finds the news, he finds the tweets, he finds the videos, he finds the whatever. He walks through it as chronologically as he can, and he gives his takes as he goes through it. And I actually saw the evolution of his content when he first started doing that, because he was concerned. At first, I think he was a little concerned that if he interjected too much, people would click off because they were there for the content and not for him. But what happened as he evolved and he became a bigger and bigger creator is he got confident in his voice. And when people complained that he was talking for too much, he just told them to fuck off. He either muted them, banned them, suspended them, whatever. And so as a result, the people he ended up attracting were the people who were attracted to his rants along with the drama content. And so he just did that and he grinded it out. I swear to God, I was watching him maybe a year or two ago, and he was at 100, 150, 300, somewhere in there. And by the way, especially when you're starting out as a creator, those are respectable numbers. Like if you're pulling in 300 people a fucking night and they're coming in order to watch you or whatever, that's like the foundation on which you build everything else. And so from the 300, just because he kept going live every single day, 4 or 5 days a week, I think he literally goes lives like 40 hours a week. He was just able to continually show up Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, put in 5 to 8 hours. And through that 5 to 8 hours, he just started hitting 1,000, 1,000, 1,500, 1,200. If it's a big drama, it's pushing 1,500. I don't think he's broken 2K yet, but still 1,500. And once you get up to that level, I think the ad revenue and the memberships are so consistent that you can start making a decent living. And I'm actually really happy that him and DK was talking shit about me the other day. But I remember back when people were trying to get DK fired like 2 or 3 years ago. And it seemed like a little rocky at first because DK was saying some wild shit out in public, and Chud kind of had to sweep for him a little bit. And what ended up happening was he just built that drama community around himself. And as a result, he's been able to put up those fucking numbers. And now I see people who I considered big in commentary. These were people that I checked out, even though I wasn't into drama at the time. But like Nick Diorio, Tommy C. I'm sure Turkey Tom knows who Chud is. He's even referenced him in a few videos. I've seen Willie Mack use Chud clips in some of his videos and all that kind of stuff. His name rings out in the community, and some of the people who were like bigger in that community, they will go out of their way to talk to Chud. And so for me, it's really I'm really like happy for him that he has found success in a niche that he enjoys, and it seems like all signs point to him continuing to succeed in the space and probably even being a big name. And since he doesn't really do debates that often anymore, and since he doesn't really seem to shit where he eats, like he doesn't seem to do a lot of like drama in his own personal life or publicize any of that stuff, I really don't see him catching like a Discord kitten drama. I don't see him catching like a sex drama or an abuse drama or anything like that. And as long as he lives like moderately, like he doesn't do a shitload of drugs and doesn't bang totally psychotic girls, I think the dude's going to succeed. So I liked him from the gate. He might not like me because I'm still in politics and I'm still grinding it out over here, and I hang out with people he doesn't like or whatever, but I'm always going to like Chud. So, I think he's a funny, entertaining asshole. And I hate his chat, but there's some cool people in his chat. It's just, they don't like me, which is fine. It's fine. It's fine not to like me. I'm not always the most reasonable and likable guy. When we're talking about game plans, for me though, we are talking about a few pretty cool things. So this is 2 3D prints, obviously with different material. I have fused them together using a soldering iron. I am going to make a skeleton. I'm going to make a mold for it, and I'm going to throw it all together, and I'm going to try to 3D print and use silicone in order to make a ballistics torso I do have explosive ammunition, but I'm hoping to get 3 of these printed out in the next probably 45 days. And I will try to have a new bolter video for you by the end of the month. Then I'll work on the chainsaw sword and I'll work on the bolt pistol. I am also working on my FFL. I have the paperwork filled out. I just need to actually go get my fingerprints and turn it in. So that's kind of the game plan there. Warhammer's doing very well. Like I said, we unlisted some videos. We took a hit. We took a revenue hit. I probably lost 40% of my revenue, 40% of my momentum. But then we redid those videos in the new formula. And we also did the bolter video and just popped right back up. And technically, last month was my highest grossing month so far this year. Screaming Sturmovich, we are not going to get along, I can tell. But he says, because I'm in politics, good to obfuscate. Screaming Sturmovich, I am citing Chud in his own chat. They jokingly talk about how there's a bunch of previous relationships that Chud Logic was with, including me and also Demon Mama and Mr. Girl and a few other people. And they're joking about how Chud is so successful that some people are going to try to hang on to his coattails. And as a result, they should not drag over Twitch politics dorks into the commentary and drama scene. So you say that I am obfuscating by saying that because I'm in politics. I think Chud will be very happy to only come to Twitch and YouTube politics whenever there's a drama. But I don't think he's going to be interested in building long and lasting relationships with Twitch and YouTube political creators. Do you disagree with my assessment, or are you being a smarmy bitch in my fucking chat for no goddamn reason? Like, seriously. Again, I appreciate you being in the Discord, all that kind of shit. But if you're going to be a negative Nancy all the time, if you're going to complain, if you're going to be a little bitch about it, eventually I'm going to get sick of it. And I'm not saying I'm going to get sick of it tonight, but I will get sick of it. So don't be a bitch. If you don't like it, don't watch it. I don't give a fuck. With who? Because it has nothing to do entirely with who. Say who. Say who. If you want to. Go ahead, please. All ears. I'm still waiting for another 40K animation. Astartes 2 would be nice. True. Anything. If Games Workshop was willing to release anything on Warhammer TV, I would be very excited. Speaking of which, sorry, another rant about content. So in reference to Warhammer 40K content, also, we're going to move into the woo. Okay, well, you typed in who. Okay. Well, he doesn't have to like Brianna. It's fine. Brianna is a politically minded individual. So if their rhetoric styles don't match, if some of Brianna's past is not to Chud's liking, then it's fine. It is what it is. Then, extended universe. We're going to break down Aliens. We're going to break down The Expanse. We're going to break down Serenity, also known, Firefly, the movie. We're going to break down a whole bunch of grim, dark sci-fi. We're going to break it down because the truth is Warhammer is taking way too goddamn long to make new content, and I want to continue breaking things down, and I don't want to do repeats of the same content over and over again. Yeah, me too, Lewis. Me too. Wu is a good person because effective. No. Wu is a good person because she's nice. I think that she is concerned with the right things, and I think she is earnestly trying her best. Now, that being said, she was raised in a different environment than me. She has had her own challenges different than me. And honestly, the way that she is gravitationally shifting politically is to my liking. So if she becomes more centrist, more liberal than progressive, more capitalist than communist or socialist, then I am a big fan of that. And I'm not gonna fucking shit talk somebody who's literally drifting my way politically. It's kind of crazy. Y'all like y'all don't like her, and then you think that the shift is disingenuous. What if it isn't? Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. These evils, again, sorry, Humpty, I'm engaging in autism with the chat, but literally, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. I am hear no evil, That's probably the weakest. See no evil, speak no evil. I'm friends with killers. You know, I grew up in the war on terror. Like, you think a political candidate exaggerating their credentials is like the line for me? Are you fucking kidding me? Sorry to be honest with you guys again, but I have friends who have fucking killed people, and I love them. They're great people. They killed people during the war on terror, which not a lot of people are appreciative of. And then as far as like enemies go, some of the people who were involved in the world that I was involved in, they would do suicide bombings. So, you know, that is about 1,000,000,000 times more fucking evil than anything. Lol, compare Woo to soldiers. I'm not comparing Woo to soldiers. I'm comparing Twitch politics to soldiers. And it's an apt comparison. You're saying that she is evil. I am saying that she does not even register on my evil scale. If I had a Geiger counter on human evil, and I pointed it at some of my friends, and I pointed it at the people that are my friends and I used to fight against, it would be going off the fucking charts. And if I pointed my evil Geiger counter at Woo, Brianna Woo, it would fucking go, like one little tick. So, yeah. Obfuscate. Okay. Let's Google the word obfuscate. The act, hold on. Obfuscate. The action of making something obscure, unclear, or unintelligible. My frustration is that you're using the word obfuscate, and I am not being unclear, making it unintelligible, or making it opaque. I am being very direct, and I'm making it very clear what my position is. So, you, like the other people who use the word sweep, are using words incorrectly. So, I wish you luck with that. But anyways, Nick, 2 dicks for you or whatever. That guy can eat a bag of fucking dicks. Thank you to the 50 people cross-platform who hung out with me tonight. Issue obfuscation. Nice. Nice, I got rich. Then look forward to the Warhammer 40k content. I am looking forward to it as well. We will be doing more Too Long Didn't Watch content. I will try to be more available in the future. I am sorry that I am not consistent with my streaming, but I hope that you did have a good time tonight. I wish you all a beautiful evening, and I will catch you in the next one. Unless I literally see questions in chat, but honestly, I don't even have an ending card. So good night. Parasocial love to you and yours. Mwah. Bye.